Dean swallowed the last of his hamburger and accidentally let out a belch. He immediately covered his mouth and apologized, for this was not his home.
Sorry, Mr. Kurtz.
No problem, Dean. It is better out than in, yeah? Gas is just a byproduct of the food we eat. All men do it, so why would one apologize? Do you apologize for taking air through your nose? Nein. So why should you be embarrassed to let it out?
My mom always taught me it was bad manners.
The hurt look on Wendell's face reminded Dean that his school friend had lost his own mother at a very young age. But before he had a chance to apologize, Mr. Kurtz waved his hand.
Oh, it's okay, young man. Wendell does not blame you for having a mother. All little boys should have a mother.
It's not your fault, Dean. You want to go play a video game?
Go, boys. You have fun.
Is this your bed? It's huge.
It was my mom's bed. It's kind of a family heirloom, and my dad didn't want to get rid of it, so he gave it to me.
It's pretty cool. Much bigger than my bed.
I know. I don't even think they make beds like it anymore, but it's so comfy. Anyway, let's play a game.
Okay.
They played video games for a little over 2 hours until Mr. Kurtz entered the room with 2 glasses of milk and told them it was time for bed. Outside, the sun had long since gone down, and the windows were dark rectangles in the wall. Dean lived at a terraced house in town with his parents. It was strange to see such complete darkness outside. There were no other houses or lampposts shining. The Kurtz's home was a cottage on the edge of town, surrounded by fields on 3 sides and a road on the 4th. It was at least 4 times bigger than the house Dean lived in.
Go into the bathroom and brush your teeth, boys, and then get into your pajamas. The night has arrived. It is time to go to sleep.
Dean went over to the inflatable bed they had set up on the floor beside Wendell's great big 4-poster bed. They were old enough now that sleeping together would be weird. While Wendell took his time in the bathroom, Dean slid down beneath the sheets of the inflatable bed and shuddered as his cold feet rubbed together at the bottom. He had not realized how cold it was until he'd changed into his PJs. Outside, he could hear the wind whistling. As he shifted into a comfortable position and laid his head down on the pillow, Dean flinched as something sharp scratched the back of his head. He shot back up into a sitting position and twisted around. It didn't take him a second to locate the strange, yellowish object on his pillow, but it took him several moments to figure out what it was. Eventually, as he held the tiny object close to his face, he saw that it was a fingernail. It was long and crinkled, obviously old. A couple of faint specks of red on the sharp tip made Dean certain it had belonged to a woman. But there were no women living inside the Kurtz home. Just Wendell and his dad. Disgusted, Dean tossed the fingernail into the dark shadows beneath Wendell's huge bed. He let out a brief shudder and wiped his fingers on top of his blankets. Then he lay back down and tried not to think about it. Wendell came out of the bathroom a minute later with a smear of toothpaste on his chin. Dean pointed it out and his friend wiped it on his hand and then onto his boxer shorts. He wasn't wearing PJs, apparently unbothered by the cold.
You okay?
Yeah, I just found, never mind. Aren't you cold?
I don't get cold.
Okay. Fair enough.
Lights off, boys. See you in the morning.
Good night, Mr. Kurtz.
Night, Dad.
Hidden Gems, episode 56! Halloween Spectacular 2023!
Welcome to Hidden Gems, a board game podcast where we review unusual, forgotten, and underappreciated board games. We're your hosts. My name is Chris.
I'm Jason.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Cameron. Thanks for listening to our show.
Is that Cameron's voice I just heard?
Woohoo! It was!
It's a ghost.
You know, if we have good voice impressions, it's got to be Cameron. So.
Oh,
The
man.
voice acting is on point this episode.
Oh, man. Speaking of voice acting, that was fun.
Yes, that we're doing something a little bit different this year on Hidden Gems. We're trying to mix it up a little bit every now and again so it doesn't get too stale. In the past, we've gone a little bit goofy, kind of horror, poking fun at ourselves a little bit. This year, we're taking a more serious role in the skit, a little bit more serious horror. We'll see how it goes.
The story is unsettling.
Yeah. Got to throw out credit, though, where credit is due. We did not write this one, unlike some of our previous ones, if you couldn't tell between the writing quality. Shout out to Ian Rob Wright, who's actually the writer of this. Chris found this story. Where did you find it, Chris? What's the name of the book that it came from?
Yeah, so I found this short story in a book written by Ian Rob Wright. It's actually a collection of horror stories called A to Z of Horror, the complete collection. So you'll notice how the title of our skit is called B is for Bogey Woman. So he writes 26, right?
Yeah.
Every story.
Letters of the alphabet?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Every story starts with a different letter.
That's
of
the scariest
alphabet.
part of the whole episode.
I
so
know,
far.
it's terrifying.
I know the scariest part is Chris actually reads. So I
Yeah, that book doesn't have pictures, does it?
know.
It does not. No, there's no illustrations in this book, but we thank Ian for letting us use his content. We actually reached out to him directly via email because we didn't want to use his stuff without permission.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, totally. He doesn't know us at all.
Right.
And just we're like, hey, we're part of a
Just
board game
Yeah.
podcast.
nice guy.
And we're going to read your story. Is that cool? And he's like, yeah, it's totally fine.
Like, nobody's going to listen to that.
Yeah. It's like the 15 people that listen to this, we want to make sure it's cool with you.
Yeah.
He feels pretty safe.
No, but it's a blast. And look forward to more of that story as the episode progresses.
Yeah, because it's a little bit longer. You just
Couple
get,
installments.
correct. Yeah, so in between each review, in between the banter and the first review, you'll get a little bit more of the story and find out what's going on with Dean.
Yeah.
And the Kurtz family.
And Vendel.
Little Vindel.
All right. Well, I'm glad to be back.
Feels like it's been
Yeah,
forever.
I think I was out for 3 episodes.
You haven't
Bill's
been
been
busy
holding
or
down the
anything.
fort over here.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so those of you who have been listening for a while may know that my wife was pregnant this year, and we just had a baby girl in September. So we've been in full-time lockdown, new parents mode with 2 kids this time.
the
and,
horror.
Oh god, it is quite a different experience than just having one.
The late night feedings.
Yeah,
The sleepless nights.
yeah. My wife had an afternoon to herself with just Nora, our baby girl, and we had someone else taking care of my son. And she came in, she was like so happy, and she was like, "This is so easy! I can't believe we ever thought this was hard," because 2 is just so different than 1. So that's been a beautiful transition for us, and we're very delighted. Mom and baby are healthy, and we're kind of like figuring out how to get back in the swing of things.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Good to hear.
Good to have you back, man.
yeah. Thank you. It's good to be back.
Bill and I are just glad we don't have to read the flavor text
Oh,
tonight.
seriously.
Right.
Seriously.
Yep.
Scottish vampires.
Yeah.
That would be awesome, Chris. What are you talking about?
So I've been missing these banter sessions where we share all the cool stuff that we've found. Those who have been listening for a while know that I do woodworking, and so I work in a shop all the time, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Yep.
And as soon as I started listening to this book, I was like, I love this book, and I want to share it on the podcast. So I haven't told y'all about this the entire time, even though we've kind of seen each other a few times and played games together and stuff like that. So I listened to this book called Project Hail Mary.
I've heard of this.
Yeah,
I haven't read it.
It's by Andy Weir, who is also the author of The Martian. That Matt Damon starred in the movie that they made of it.
And the Hail Mary, I think, is the second one, right?
They actually are making they're making a movie of this book.
Oh, really?
However, I highly recommend this book, Project Hail Mary. The way that they communicate the science of everything that this guy is dealing with in his adventure. I don't want to give away too much, but we'll just say he ends up alone in space and having to do all sorts of astronaut science stuff and biology stuff in a spacecraft. It's not science fiction in a really fiction-y sense, if that makes
Right.
sense. Like it seems to be very true to the science, and he explains a lot of stuff in honestly really great detail. I don't have much of any science background apart from what I learned in high school, but I have a general understanding of physics and kind of things like that. But they do a really good job making it approachable.
Yeah.
And just how he problem solves. It's a whole book of him just problem solving his way through the narrative and figuring things out. And I told my wife, I was like, this is like my favorite science fiction book that I've ever read.
Wow.
Did you read The Martian?
I've only seen the movie of The Martian. I haven't.
Book's really good too.
Yeah, the book is just exactly like that because it's all about the science kind of things. So
Yeah.
that's very
I started looking at more things that Andy Weir has written. And I was excited to see that they're going to make a movie of this one.
You know, he's local. I think he lives
in North Carolina.
I think he's local in North Carolina.
No way.
And he's a computer science guy. And this is kind of funny. He got a start. He published his book for free online. And somebody was like, hey, I want to get this on my Kindle. And I can't because you got it like in a PDF form. Can you do something about that? And he's like, let me see if I can figure this out. And it's like, well, I can put it up on a Kindle, but I can't make it free. So I have to charge for it. And
No
and
way.
then when he started charging for it, he's like, I got a lesson in the scale of the world because he was like making, you know, I don't know, somewhere between $1 and $5, and he ended up making a boatload of money off of Kindle because it was so popular.
That is wild.
There's like a YouTube of him out there talking about the science of what he was doing in The Martian that I thought was kind of cool too.
That's cool.
That was really neat.
Well, for someone who doesn't work in any of those fields, he really seems to understand that science stuff pretty clearly, more clearly than I do.
My wife read that book.
Okay.
I just haven't gotten around to it. I read The Martian, so
Yeah, and I
I'll
will
have
say
to check it
too,
out.
I think this would probably work fine as a paper book, but there's a language thing that comes up. I don't want to give anything away, but there's a language thing that comes up that that works really well in the audiobook experience.
It's funny if you're going to start telling your wife, happy, happy, happy. Because there is a language thing that comes up. Anyway, that's kind of funny. I read it
So
as
you've
well.
read it?
Yeah, I've read it.
Okay, yeah. And I just I really liked as well, like just how the audiobook handled that difference.
Right, exactly.
Nice. Good one, man. Good to have you back, Cam.
It's awesome to have you back.
Bill, what's going on with you, man?
Well, I
You got something spooky for us?
well, maybe sort of. I'm not going to.
Spookier than a
I'm
newborn?
going to do two light ones. Next week, I'm headed to Iceland, by the way, which is super cool. I'm very excited about that.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, I will blaze the path for when you go later. I'm sure you're going to do a bunch of cool things there. I ended up listening to this podcast that talked about Iceland has this kind of weird quirk to it that they're into this crime noir. They're all into these murder mystery things that is just kind of crazy. I don't know if you guys ever read any Stieg Larsson and the Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest or the what's the others?
The dragon tattoo.
Girl with Dragon
yeah.
Tattoo.
Seen the
Yeah,
movies, yeah.
those things. The books are really good. Anyway, I guess that's just a thing because if you look at Iceland, it has the lowest homicide rate of any other country in the world. They have 2 per year, I think, or something like that. I think it doubled maybe last year and had 4, right? But for whatever reason, it's kind of captured the public imagination about murders kind of things. And I just started reading a book by the prime minister of the country and another mystery writer on it that's about this uncovering this murder that happened in Reykjavik, Iceland. And so the title of the book is called Reykjavik by Ragnar Johannesson and Katrin, I can't even attempt her last name, but she's the one who's the prime minister. And it's kind of funny. You look at her picture and she looks like she's in her mid-30s or something.
Wow.
But anyway, it's been kind of cool. I will say the scary one that I'll say, I'm not sure if I talked about it on here before, but the scaredest I think I've ever been, and this is, I'm trying to think in or out of anywhere, was playing a VR game. It's called Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners.
Okay, I've seen this.
Have you seen- yeah,
Yeah, not played it. but-
Okay. It's kind of got a sort of typical opening maybe where you actually meet this old guy in the Louisiana swamp bayou, and it's some dystopian future, right, where the zombies have taken over the world and they like own all of Louisiana. So you come in on a canoe and you end up, he directs you to this old school bus that ends up, it's going to be your base, I guess, for the whole episode. And so a big part of it is scavenging stuff. So I have like a pistol with 2 bullets in it.
Yeah,
And
like
then
any good horror game should have.
Exactly.
The
And then
fear
like-
of running out of ammo should be strong
Oh,
in a
absolutely.
horror-themed video game.
And then I think my main weapon is a screwdriver.
When all else fails.
So I go to the first mission. This is probably the tutorial mission. I meet a woman on the side of the road, and she says her husband's turned into a zombie. He's in this house just up the road. And I would like to get my wedding ring back, but I just can't bring myself to off him. So can you go do it? I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'm going to go do it. So I end up going to the house, and there's like this low nervousness, by the way, because they say once it gets dark, the zombies just come out in force, and you can hear like the church bell ringing off in the distance.
Oh boy, yeah.
So you can hear the gongs of the church going off all the time. So it's like, what time was that really? How many gongs was that? Because it's easy to lose track. So I'm in the house. I meet a couple zombies. It was okay. I was able to handle them, but I'm saving my gun because I'm thinking the dad's going to be kind of this beast zombie. So I go up to the attic and I find out that it is pitch dark. And that's the first time I've ever been in the dark. And you have a flashlight that's attached to your lapel. So you turn on your flashlight, and so all you can see is this little round window of light that's right in front of
VR.
you. In VR. So you feel like you're looking all the way around. So I decided I'm going to pull out the gun because this is the time I need my gun. So I pull out my gun. I go upstairs. They have it set up for like the perfect jump scare. He jumps out. I pull out my gun, and I shoot him. And I hadn't loaded my gun. So it goes click, click, click. I was like, oh my God. So I'm like turning around, running, trying to find my bullets, open up my gun and put it in there. And I haven't really ever loaded my gun before while the zombies attack me. So I end up like dropping my bullets in the dark on the floor. I end up dropping my gun on the floor. I'm running around. So I end up like running downstairs and he's following me. And I'm trying to like get into my inventory and pull up my screwdriver again to try to get him. It was just freaking me out, and I will swear to God, I have not played that game since then because it freaked me out so bad.
And that was like the first 30 minutes,
right? Exactly. That was the first 30 minutes of the game. What's that?
Was it we were also playing like actually at night?
Well, in their VR it is, but I was alone at the house.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, it's very immersive. Very, very.
Gosh,
immersive.
I could imagine. So. Honest question. This is something I wonder about VR because I played it a few times. Yours.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds terrifying, and I'm intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that in VR, sometimes the graphics, it's not like on the PS5, right? They're just not quite there. Does the graphic quality kind of pull you out of the immersion a little bit, or is it something where you don't really even notice it?
Oh, I didn't at all.
You really?
Yeah. Even there's another one
because I played a zombie shooter one time with you,
right?
That wasn't like this. They were just kind of coming from all sides, and it was a lot of fun. But it wasn't really scary because they didn't look.
They were meant to be cartoony.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Walking Dead one they're meant to be much more realistic.
So they look terrifying.
Yeah, and when you're like,
I'm down for this.
When you do the real tutorial, when you go through, like when you have it'll sound horrible, the screwdriver, when you because you have to take them out in the brains, right? When you stick them in the head and you're trying to get it out with like sticks, and you have to wrench it around and you have to pull it. I mean, everything just feels real when you're doing it. It's like,
sounds real wholesome.
It does. You have to stick your hand out and you get a little effort to jerk it out. So
No desire to do any of this.
Nope.
Like, why do people subject themselves to the corn maze with the people running through with chainsaws? I'm like, why?
No.
What is fun about that?
I will say I'm scarred, Jason, so I'm with you now. I'm
Oh man,
you on
getting
that,
scared is fun.
This is always an ironic episode for me because I seem like I'm super into it with all my voices and everything, but horror is the thing I'm least interested in.
The farthest I go is that I usually read a Stephen King book or something scary around this time of year. It just feels right.
Right. Nice, Bill. That's good, man.
All right. Well, how about you, Jason?
So, speaking of books becoming movies, I think I mentioned on the last episode Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yep.
And that it was becoming a movie. So I went to see the movie this past week. I will say, I don't know. Take it for what you will, but I was not impressed by the movie.
Really?
So
Really?
I will throw that out there because I was pumping it up last time. The book, phenomenal. Go check out the book. Again, this is about the Osage Indian tribe in Oklahoma and the advent of the FBI. But man, the movie was 3.5 hours long. Maybe it was because I'd read the book and I already knew it was going to happen. Maybe if you don't know what's going to happen, it's more interesting. But just throwing that out there, my 2 cents.
Interesting.
But yeah, aside from that, I've been playing some video games. One that I know you've played, Chris. Vampire Survivors.
Oh, yes.
I think we've teased it before.
I have played this
episode.
one. This is good for the Halloween episode.
I feel like I've been on a spree of
and other platforms. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've been on a spree of roguelites.
Yeah.
So Vampire Survivors, Darkest Dungeon, I'm going to talk about in a second. Slay the Spire. Brotato. Have you heard of this one?
I have heard of Brotato because it's like Vampire Survivors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not as good as Vampire Survivors, I would say.
Yeah.
But
Is that anything like Broforce? Rotato?
A little bit. You basically play
You unlock bros.
an armed potato.
Gameplay's different.
Yeah. So anyway, Vampire Survivors. Basically, you are a sprite character.
Yeah.
Various different mages and whatever. And you just have to survive for as long as you can with these like swarms of thousands of monsters coming at you.
Yeah. That is not an exaggeration, by the way.
Yeah. No, like
Tens of thousands by the end of the
What?
level.
yeah, it's insane. Like the entire screen is just filled with things coming after you.
Like Robotron.
And you're just mowing,
Yeah,
them, just
kinda.
mowing them down.
Start slow, though.
Yeah, it starts off slow, and basically every time you kill a monster, it drops like a little gem,
Hmm.
and you collect the gems. The more gems you collect, you level up, and you get to upgrade one of your weapons, or you get a new weapon.
Yep.
And so the goal is to survive for, 20 minutes?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. If you survive for 30 minutes, then you've won, right?
Mm.
And then the Grim Reaper comes in and kills you. But yeah, you've
Right.
won, basically.
Yeah.
That level.
Very cool, though, because there's lots of different characters, lots of different weapons. You're trying to figure out what the ideal weapons are, upgrade. Yeah, I've enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
It's not super deep. It doesn't go like way deep down the...
There's some trickiness to it, though. So there's an interesting component of the game where you can combine two different weapons and it will create a new thing.
super weapon.
A super weapon, basically. But it doesn't tell you when the game starts what those formulas or those recipes are. So you kind of have to figure them out with
Yeah.
trial and error throughout the course of the game
Mm-hmm.
to figure out how to forge these super weapons. Because if you don't, you will not make it.
Oh, wow.
You will not make it. I mean, the board becomes so full, you will just get overwhelmed. But if you make these super weapons and make like 2 or 3 of them, you just feel like you're like God tier. I mean, like you can't be killed.
Just mowing them
Really,
down.
but it's kind of fun just to see it playing
Yeah,
out
yeah.
with you just becoming overpowered, basically. But you have
With
to work
garlic.
to get there. With garlic, yeah.
Garlic's the best one.
It definitely is.
But, yeah, so that's what I've been playing.
Entertaining. Yeah.
Another one that I got into, very different, called Darkest Dungeon, which is actually pretty
Mm-hmm.
old. It's been around for a while.
Cool art style.
But this is, yeah, it's got a really unique art style. Basically, you go into this old school, like medieval town,
Mm-hmm.
and the manor that is in this estate has been overrun by like kind of eldritch horror kind of monsters, right? And so you're tasked with putting together a band of, or potentially multiple bands of people to send down into these dungeons and try to, eradicate monsters. What's interesting about it is, though, it's super dark in terms of like theming, because one of the biggest components of surviving in this game is that your characters are permanent. So you obtain a character from like the pub, basically, or whatever, like as they arrive in town. But once you assemble them into your group, like you have to keep them up. You have to maintain them. Every time you go into the dungeon, they get stressed out, basically. So like more
losing their
monsters they
sanity.
encounter, they start to go insane. They get diseases. They get like going nuts and taking on all these conditions and stuff. So when you're back in town, you have to maintain your crew. Or if they take too much stress when they're in the dungeon, they'll just go insane. They'll have a heart attack and they'll die. And then they're gone. Like your character's just gone.
Sounds like D&D first edition.
Yeah.
You have a disease. You have a mental disease.
Right. And so it's interesting because like different things, like they'll get kleptomania. So now every time you go to like a treasure chest, they just steal it and the group doesn't get it. Right. So it feels like as you're going through, it's just like everything that happens to you is bad. But basically the game is managing all the bad things that are happening to you. And it's surprisingly fun despite all of that. So I haven't made it super far because it's really freaking hard. It's an interesting concept, cool game. So yeah.
What's the name of that again?
Darkest Dungeon. There's a Darkest Dungeon 2 also that has come out since then, but I've heard that it's not as good. I heard they changed some things
I haven't
around,
played that one.
and it's not as interesting. Oh, you've played this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you make it all the way through?
No.
Yeah, it's a bit of. If I have to say anything, I would say it's hard enough that it's starting to feel a little bit like a slog. Like it's just taking a long time to progress because you'll level up your whole group and you'll get to like level 4 and you're like awesome, and then they all die and you're like, well, crap. Now I have to start back from the beginning,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
Yeah. It wasn't for a lack of not wanting to. I think it was at a time where I just kind of got busy and I just wasn't able to get back to it, kind of a thing. But
Yeah.
I kind of want to finish it.
I have a quick question. So this is on the Switch, right?
Yeah.
Are you doing this like while you're watching TV? Is that how you fit it into your life, or is there
Yeah,
some other?
or like I don't play for long times, which is
Right.
why I rarely beat games because I'll have like 30 minutes
Here and there, yeah.
before bed or something. But
Quitter.
whatever.
Stay up till 2
You didn't
a.m.
beat
What's
it
wrong with you?
All right. I have a video game to talk about also. That's
Sweet.
also Halloween-ish themed. And that is Cult of the Lamb.
Oh yeah.
So,
I've heard of this one. I
yeah.
haven't played it though.
Jason has got me on a Devolver kick here, talking about all these Devolver games. And Devolver, a few weeks back, did this huge sale where all of their games were like 60 and 70% off, and I bought like almost all of them. Downloaded them on the Switch eShop because they were so cheap. And
Right.
I was like, I want to try these. So downloaded Cult of the Lamb. So Cult of the Lamb, the idea of the game is you're a lamb, you're a little sheep, and you're on an altar. You're getting ready to get sacrificed.
Oh, God.
Okay, because you're a lamb.
Okay.
Good start.
Obviously, yeah. So let me begin by saying this, because when I describe this game, it's going to sound like super dark. Okay,
Okay.
but the art style is super cartoony. Have y'all ever seen the show Happy Tree Friends?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where the characters in that
very
cartoon die
gory.
these like horrific deaths,
Yeah.
but they're like super cartoony and cute, so it really doesn't seem horrible. It's actually kind of funny.
Until their guts are like all over the screen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of like what this game is.
Okay.
Okay,
So who is the demographic for that show? Is it
Me.
supposed to be for kids or is it
40-year-olds that are awesome.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it's like Happy Tree Friends. Okay, so you got these really cute cartoony woodland creatures. Okay, so I'm getting ready to get offered up, but then I get rescued by this imprisoned god known as the One That Sleeps. Okay, so he releases me, but he says, hey, in return, you have to build my cult back up, basically. And I need you to free me. Okay, so my lamb builds his own little cult back up, and we're not going to be the sacrifices anymore. We're going to be the ones that are going to be taking it to the people, right? So that's the idea. All right. So the game is a base building dungeon crawler. So there's two parts to the game. The base building part, basically, your cult starts out in a plot of land, and it's completely barren. There's nothing in it. There's just like trees and rocks. And basically, you have to start harvesting everything. You're clearing the land, you're gathering resources, and you start to build buildings because you need a church for your people to worship in, your cult members, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need a kitchen, you need an outhouse, things like that, because you have to manage everything. Your followers, when they eat, they poop. So they like leave poop on the ground. If you leave it sitting out, they get diseases. So you're like cleaning poop. Got to clean the poop up. If you're not feeding them, they start
Are they
to get,
also lambs?
it's all different kinds of
Okay.
like little woodland animals.
Okay.
And so if you're not feeding them or not meeting their needs, they start to get pissed at you,
Okay.
right? So they walk around and they're like all angry. They've got these angry eyes.
They're like Sims.
It's kind of like Sims, yeah.
Okay.
And because you're a cult leader, you can read thoughts. You can read their minds and see what they're thinking. And if they're thinking about spreading discord in the cult, you can re-educate them, quote unquote, by putting them in the stocks.
Oh my gosh.
So you build this jail and there's these stocks. You put their heads like in the holes and you read from your scriptures to re-educate them and show them that, you know,
Brainwash them.
yes, you're brainwashing them. Yeah. So
Wow.
pretty much every like cultish trope you can possibly think of
Right.
is in this game. And because it's done in this like cartoony, cute art style, it's funny to see it being played out.
I have so many things I want to say in my head, and I can't say any of them right now.
Whoa, like what?
No, I can't say it. It's gonna make people unhappy in this room, so I won't say it.
Okay. All right, we'll talk about it after the show.
All right,
then.
sure.
But anyway, it's entertaining to say the least. So then the dungeon crawling part, once you're done with the base building, because it's a lot of upkeep. If you've ever played a game like Stardew Valley or The Sims, I guess, you know, there's a lot of like,
Yeah.
you're just
You
like checking boxes.
gotta go harvest your plants.
Yeah, you
Gotta
gotta
go do some fishing.
Yep, exactly. So you're doing all that, and by the time you're kind of done with that, you can go run a mission. So you're trying to kill off these other cult members and their elder gods or whatever, gathering resources, and then when you're kind of done with that, you go back to the base building part. So you're kind of bouncing back and forth.
Oh, okay.
And I will
do
say,
do you send out an army to do that? Or
that's
does
just you.
Oh,
Although you can build a summoning circle where you
Of course
can call back, so you can sacrifice your cult members. You can call them back to fight with you and things like that. So you can bring people in with you to help you if you've built the right structures and things like that.
This game sounds terrible.
It's not terrible. I am telling you, it is not terrible. It is actually quite good. It really is. And not easy.
Okay.
It is challenging, to say the least. Well, what's turning you off about it? The cult
Everything
aspect.
that you've said about it so far. It's like you could play Stardew Valley and make friends and create food and, collect eggs and make mayonnaise. or
That sounds boring.
Or you could sacrifice your friends to the gods.
Well, I mean, they want you to, though. They actually ask you to sometimes. They're like, oh, great leader, I would be honored if you would sacrifice me. And then you sacrifice them. And then you get all these glory points. You level up.
That's the society we're going for.
No, why this is scratching some itch for you, Chris, is beyond me.
It's funny, man. It's a good game.
Wow.
Jason knows
This
he
has
wants to
finally
play
lost it.
Don't act like you're not going to try, Jason.
True. Now I know why you picked the short story as well.
I've actually heard mixed reviews on this game, to be honest. So I'm glad to hear that you think it's good.
Honestly, do. I'm not trying to be funny or make for good listening content. I've enjoyed it so far. I think it's good. I really do.
You know what I think? We need to bring our 4 computers in because you never played Warcraft, did you? Like the
No.
original Warcraft,
No.
Warcraft 2. We need to do that or
Yes, master.
right, Empire's Dawn of the Modern World or some really good real-time strategy game where that's what you do is you build buildings.
Cult of the Lamb is good, though.
But when you're talking about building buildings and creating an army and going after one person or the other or against a computer, those games are really the bomb. So it'd be interesting to see how you would compare the games that
Well,
you're playing now versus those kind of
I
games.
will tell you, I've never played a game like this base builder type thing where you're taking a barren landscape
Yeah.
and you're building it up in the way that you need, but also the way you want. This is going to sound weird, but there's kind of like this aesthetic part of the game where you're like, well, I could just put the outhouse here, but it would really make more sense if I put it over here because it's next to this building, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, but your mind starts to think about how you would want everything to look.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's also the convenience thing. How far do you really want to walk to go over there every
Yeah.
time you need
Well,
to?
Chris will be fully
upkeep?
prepared when he decides to start his cult.
That's right. The church can't be too far from the summoning circle. I mean, honestly.
It's a training ground.
And like in World of Warcraft or Empire Dawn of the World, where you put your town hall is really important because it's how far are the people going to walk to do the thing that they need to do, and
Right,
it's a
right, right.
time-based thing, right? So
Right.
if you're making them walk halfway across the map, then you're going to lose. You gotta
Right.
you have to be a little strategic about where you place it.
Yeah, I'll have to look into them. Like I said, I've enjoyed it so far, especially that aspect.
Fun.
All right.
Sweet.
So yeah, in the Halloween theme, I think I've mentioned this. My wife has actually been the cocktail maker in our house lately, but she made something the other night, and then we were talking about the Halloween episode, and I was like, that would actually work perfect for this. So we have a maple New York sour, which may not sound very Halloween-y off the top, but this is 2 ounces of bourbon, an ounce of lemon juice, a half an ounce of maple syrup, all mixed together, strained over ice. But what makes it Halloween themed
Yeah.
is that you float a half an ounce of red wine on top of this. So the drink itself is kind of like a yellowish, pale yellow, beigey color.
Mm-hmm.
Then you float red wine on top. So you pour it very gently over the top, and it actually floats on the top, and it looks like blood seeping down through the drink.
Yeah.
I took a picture of it. We'll have to share it.
It's
Yeah.
super cool.
But it mixes that sweetness
Post
of
on
the red
Instagram
wine.
for the first time in like 6 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the sweetness of the red wine with the tanginess of the lemon and the bourbon. Just goes
Nice.
really
Tell
well.
me the recipe again. 2 ounces of bourbon. What's the other?
2 ounces of bourbon, an ounce of lemon juice, a half an ounce of maple syrup, the good kind, not like Aunt Jemima. Gotta get like real maple syrup. And then a half an ounce of red wine floated on top. I've seen some recipes call for an egg white as part of it too, but I'm not a big egg white fan, so I leave that out.
The egg white is traditional for the whiskey sour.
Yeah. Yep.
Put an egg white in it. Do you mix it hard or anything? Do you try to
You gotta
Dry
you gotta
shake.
shake it real
Dry
hard.
shake.
Dry shake it. No ice.
New York sour is actually a pretty popular classic cocktail. This one just kind of adds the maple syrup to it, which gives it a little bit more flavor and depth.
Nice.
I'm going to try this in my bar at home. This is cool. I love
Do
it.
it.
Good job, Jason.
Good job, Jason. All right. Well, it wouldn't be a Halloween episode. We didn't do a little Halloween trivia
All right.
because I have to torture my friend
Oh, my
Jason over
goodness.
here for Halloween.
Should we tune back into the episode to hear what happens
It's
first?
not
or do you
torture
wanna do
because I
this?
don't like it. It's just torture because I'm terrible at it.
Yeah.
And then I get made fun of for being terrible at it.
Since Jason and I have been fighting a lot lately, I definitely felt like we needed to do the trivia section this year. So I could torture him even more.
Do we have prizes?
Oh, we're actually keeping score.
Oh,
Great.
we're keeping score, my friend.
What do we win, Chris?
The glory of being the best. All right, so similar to last time, if you are ready to answer, as I'm reading the question, you say answer. Okay, that's going to be like buzzing in, and that gives you first guess at the question. If you're incorrect, you will lose a point. Okay, so you can't just buzz in and then take a wild guess. You should try to at least think you might know the answer. Okay, I did a few more questions this year than I did last time, so it's going to be a little bit more involved. All right, but I tried to stay off the 80s slasher stuff because I don't think that's y'all's forte. Okay, so I tried to incorporate a few other things. Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Cue the spooky Halloween trivia music. All right. Question number 1. Everybody knows that Reese's is the most popular kind of Halloween candy. However, which of the following is not a type of Reese's candy? This is multiple choice. You don't have to buzz in for this one. Everybody's just going to pick an option. Okay. So which of the following is not a type of Reese's candy? Reese's Nutrageous, Reese's Big Cup with Almonds, Reese's Outrageous, or Reese's Fast Break? Which is not an actual Reese's?
Who goes first?
Say him again.
Reese's Nutrageous, Reese's Big Cup with Almonds, Reese's Outrageous, Reese's Fast Break. A, B, C, and D.
You go with Reese's Outrageous.
Okay. Bill?
See, whatever that.
Big cup with almonds.
It is Big Cup with Almonds.
Yes!
Really?
Reese's Outrageous is an actual Reese's, and it is awesome, by the way. If you've never had it, it's my favorite.
I want one. Now, is that my prize?
That's right. Have you had it?
No.
It's like a Nutrageous, but instead of nuts around the outside, it's Reese's Pieces.
Oh, that is outrageous.
Dude, it's incredible. Yeah. So who got that? Cameron got that.
I know that Reese's knows better than to put freaking almonds in their delicious candy.
I was trying to throw people off with the nuts, but there's no almonds. No almonds in Reese's. All right. Question number 2. In the long-running Scream movie franchise, Ghostface's first on-screen victims were Casey Becker and her boyfriend Steve. Which actress played the role of Casey Becker?
Courtney Cox?
That is incorrect.
Wasn't she in the screen?
Yeah. Then it wasn't
I thought
her.
you said you were staying away from slasher horror.
That's 90s.
What did you say?
80s.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Great.
sorry, like the Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th stuff.
Okay.
Nobody's seen the first Scream?
Nope.
Nope.
Oh, boy.
I haven't seen any of the screens.
Who was it?
Drew Barrymore.
Okay.
They're going to get easier.
I should get a point for like trying.
All right, so I'll give
That's
you
the whole point, Bill. If you try and you get
I'm
it
also
wrong, you
very,
lose points.
very terrible at
This whole
trying to
minus
name
point
actors.
thing, I'm against that. I mean, you shouldn't have no minus points.
It's going to get easier, I promise. All right, this is actually an 80s question, okay? I'll warn you up front, but I think somebody's going to get this. What type of monsters are the Lost Boys?
Vampires.
That is correct. Very nice, Bill.
Answer. Sorry.
In what context? The Lost, not the Peter Pan Lost Boys.
Not the Peter Pan Lost Boys. There's a movie from the 80s called The Lost Boys starring Kiefer Sutherland,
Exactly.
Oh.
and they're vampires.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Before he was an amazing anti-terrorism.
That's right.
police
Before
officer.
Jack Bauer, yeah.
This is the first movie like that where they did the obvious thing of putting holy water into squirt guns. Squirt it in.
All right.
It's like, why didn't they do that in every other
Well
Hollywood?
done, Bill.
This is going well.
Oh, no. Okay, y'all be ready. Y'all are going to probably know this one.
All right.
Question number 4.
Do we buzz in for this
You
one?
buzz in, you say
Okay.
answer.
Sorry. I just have to say
I'll
answer.
take away a point if you do that again. In the Netflix show Stranger Things, what is Dustin's favorite kind of Halloween candy?
Answer.
Yes.
Skittles.
No.
Damn it. I know it. I should know it.
That's a great question.
It's mentioned several times
He does.
in the episodes. Yeah,
Just-
he feeds it to the demi dog.
I should know this because we're watching the first season of Stranger Things with our oldest right now. But
I have a second guess if nobody else is going to guess, but only if it doesn't do minus.
It will.
I
will
know.
not minus
I
you
know he
again.
says something about nougat, but I think he's down.
Yes.
I think he's against the nougat.
No, he's
Oh,
pro nougat.
Answer.
Answer.
Three
Okay.
Musketeers.
That is correct.
Oh yeah, that's
It took a
that's
second
it.
to come to me.
Because he
I was
freaking
gonna guess
names it
Milky
that.
Way, but
He
that's
names
right.
it after the Three Musketeers.
D'Artagnan.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Good job, Jason.
Hey, I got a point.
You
I got a
point,
question
Jason.
right.
You're tied for first right now.
Oh my goodness.
Bill's
what am I
in
gonna do with
last.
myself?
Stop it with the minuses.
All right, number 5. Be ready. Finish the following song lyric. Boys and girls of every age, wouldn't you like to see something strange? Come with us and you will see.
Something about the Addams family.
Boys and girls of every age, something strange.
Oh.
Come with us and you will see.
Oh yeah, I know. Is it? Are we finishing
Blank.
it?
Yes, you're finishing it.
Oh
Something Halloween.
yeah, it's this is
I just watched this movie too.
this is from
But I
from
don't
the
pay
Nightmare
attention to
Before
song
Christmas.
lyrics.
It is.
I literally watched this movie with my kids this week.
Don't know it?
I don't know it.
The answer is This Our Town of
This is
Halloween.
our town of Halloween. There you go.
Question 6. This is a D&D-ish question.
Let's go.
This atmospheric ghost light, seen by travelers at night, especially over swamps, bogs, and marshes, attempts to lead travelers off the trail where they will meet their demise. Name this monster.
Answer:
Yes.
Swamp Hack.
No. This ghost light.
Oh,
Anybody?
You know I don't know this one.
Bill, you got a guess?
Only if it's not a minus.
Or I'll give you a freebie.
A will-o-wisp?
That is correct.
oh, nice. Yeah.
It is a will-o-wisp. You got that,
Did I?
Bill. So, score update. Jason has 1. Cameron has 0. Bill has 0.
I am winning. So
The game should
Because
stop.
I anticipated this, we're entering a Jeopardy style. We're actually going to go into a category here. This is Stephen King trivia.
Oh,
Well, I'm out.
Really?
Well, I'll try. Yeah, I didn't
Okay.
really read.
All right, you ready? First question in this category. What breed of dog is Cujo?
I haven't read this one.
answer:
Yes.
Rottweiler.
No.
Mm.
Good guess, though.
It's a minus?
Yes.
I'm not going to guess. I think I know.
Ugh, come on. Just go for it if you think you know.
All right. Answers St. Bernard.
That is correct. St. Bernard.
Look at me.
Well done. All right. Name the Stephen King movie adaptation that the following line comes from. They're all going to laugh at you.
Answer
Yes.
it.
No.
Did you know the answer to all of these questions?
Oh, absolutely. I did. I wrote them. I totally know this. I saw this movie numerous times when I was a kid.
Oh, I will guess without the minus, but
Oh, gosh. All right. No more minuses. Good grief. All right. Go ahead.
Carrie.
Get my
It is
point back.
Carrie. It is Carrie. That's the mom trying to get Carrie to not go to the dance.
Right.
Because she's like, they're all going to laugh at you. And then they dunk the pig's blood on her head. She kills everybody. Spoilers.
Sounds awful.
It is kind of awful. Next question. What is Christine?
Answer
Yes,
a car.
that is correct.
Oh man, it's gonna say my wife. That's a real name, everybody.
Multiple choice. Which of the following is a Stephen King pen name? Richard Bachman, Clive Staple Lewis, Robert Galbraith, Charles Dodgson.
Say him again.
Richard Bachman, Clive Staple Lewis, Robert Galbraith, Charles Dodgson.
I have a 1 of 2 guess.
Go for it. Everybody gets to guess.
I'll go for the second one.
Okay. Clive Staple Lewis.
I'm gonna go with A.
Okay.
I'll go with B.
The answer is A. Richard Bachman. Why is B
Wow.
incorrect, Cameron?
Because that is C.S. Lewis's name and it's Staples.
Oh, yeah. That's funny.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Staples. Yes.
I knew it wasn't C because that's J.K. Rowling.
Right. Exactly.
That is correct. Yeah.
Right.
And then Charles Dodgson is Lewis Carroll,
Right.
actually.
Yeah, I'm reading all the Galbraith books. They just posted a new one now. So,
All right. Having fun?
Yep.
yeah, man.
Oh yeah, this is great.
Hopefully everybody's playing along at home. It's fun for me. All right. I'm going to give you the plot of a Stephen King book turned into movie adaptation. One sentence. Name the movie or the book. In the future, prisoners try to earn their freedom on a game show where they have to survive a gauntlet of professional killers, one of whom is dressed up like a hockey goalie.
Answer
Mm-hmm.
Running Man.
That is correct. Running Man.
Arnold in
Bill's
that movie.
crushing us.
He's crushing it right now. Bonus question. The game show's host, Killian, was played by actor Richard Dawson. What game show did Richard Dawson host in real life?
Family Feud.
That is correct.
Answer Family Feud.
Answer
Wow.
Family Feud. Fun fact, my family was on Family Feud.
You said Richard Dawson, and
Was it
all I
really?
could think of was Richard
Wow.
Dawkins.
Not when Richard Dawson was the host. When Ray Combs was the host of Family Feud, my family was on Family Feud.
Wow.
No lie.
You were on it?
Not I. I was in first grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
How'd they do?
My mom, her 3 sisters, and my grandfather. They won the first day, lost the second day.
Wow.
Cool.
No kidding.
That's definitely like a fun fact, right? Like if you ever have to introduce yourself and give a fun fact to an entire room of people, be like, my family was once on Family Feud.
All right, got a couple more here. Hang in there, guys. A score update. Bill has 5. Cameron and Jason have 0. So
I came back from -1 though. So
You have. Going for second here. You got this. All right. We're going to continue with the theme. Just a couple more single sentence movie plots. I'm going to read a sentence. You tell me what movie it is. This is a weird one. It's old. Man adopts a son to replace his recently deceased son, but instead ends up with the Antichrist.
Answer.
Mm-hmm.
The Omen.
That is correct. Bill.
Guys.
Those is horror. Well done.
Dang.
Jason and I, by reputation, don't know crap about this stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
Y'all
And
can
yet
get
Chris
these next
does this
two.
every year.
Yeah.
It's fun for me. All right. Two more. Woman tries to bring peace to a creepy well-dwelling girl, but instead unleashes a
Answer.
monster that kills people through their TV screens.
The Ring.
That is correct. Well done.
Movie scared the crap out of me.
I still haven't seen it. Don't plan to.
It's pretty terrifying. All right, last one. A girl hits a man with her car, dumps his body in the water, and ends up getting terrorized by a hook-wielding madman. 90s.
Answer.
Yes.
The Hitchhiker.
No. Like the guess, though. No. I know what you did last summer.
Oh, yeah.
Never saw that.
No?
I think this is actually one that I did see.
you see
but
this
for
one?
some reason, I thought it was called The Hitchhiker and not.
But that's the one you were thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, Bill, you won.
Good job,
6
Bill.
points. Well done. Jason
Crushed
came in
it.
second with 1. Cameron had 0, but hey, it's good effort. Appreciate the effort.
Oh, I got a follow-up question for you.
Yes.
What show did Richard Dawson do for long-running years before he was on the Family Feud when he was younger?
Was it a game show?
No, it was a series.
Oh, I have no idea.
It was Hogan's Heroes.
No way.
He was he was a British guy there, I think, or something. But anyway,
Yeah. I think Richard Dawson was the first host of Family Feud,
I think he was.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
So
no.
like back in the 70s. Old school.
Speaking of game shows, how wild is it that Pat Sajak is no longer on Wheel of Fortune?
Is he not?
Pretty sure
Really?
that he's like being replaced,
Really?
or like he's going to
Retired.
retire or
Yeah, I think he
something soon.
retired, yeah.
This is
Or
like
maybe he did retire.
ends of an era. Because,
Because I want to say it was like Ryan Seacrest or someone.
I'm pretty
Like
sure he
that.
was a robot like 5 years ago.
I'm gonna look this up
So,
right now.
yeah. I was watching Jeopardy with my mom and dad the other day, and I was killing it. Only reason because it was Celebrity Jeopardy.
Oh, yeah.
The questions are
Those are so
easier.
easy, yeah.
My parents were thinking I was like complete genius. They were like, "You should enter on." And I was like, "No." Normal Jeopardy, I'm getting like
Oh.
15%.
What was I
No.
thinking that I could Google something on my phone out here in the
Not out here. It's
in the upside
ghosts.
down.
That was fun, Chris. I enjoyed that.
Well, thank you, Bill.
I'm glad somebody did.
I'm glad somebody appreciates the time I spent to think up all those questions
Yeah,
that,
they were
yes,
good-
I
they
do
were
indeed
good
know the
questions.
answer to.
They were good questions. All right. Well, there's your banter session. It's only an hour long.
Yes, good.
Let's get into the games.
Let's do it.
The
Awesome.
episode's gonna be like 4 hours long.
It is not.
Mr. Kurtz flipped the switch on the wall and sent the bedroom into darkness. Dean's tummy rolled as if he were riding a roller coaster. There was no explanation for it. There was also the sound of hissing, but it was so brief that once it stopped, he was sure he had imagined it. Once Mr. Kurtz's footsteps faded down the hallway, Dean sat up in bed and tried to see in the darkness. At home, when he turned off the lights, his eyes would slowly adjust until he could see shapes and shadows. But inside Wendell's bedroom, the darkness did not yield. No shapes formed, and he was left without any sense of space.
You sure you're not cold?
I'm fine. We need to go to sleep now. The night has arrived.
Huh, thought Dean. That was strange. Wendell's father had said the same thing. Was it a family motto or something? Dean lay back on his pillow and blinked. It felt strange to see no difference between when his eyes were open to when they were closed, and he suddenly wondered what it would be like to be blind. Then, suddenly, something shifted in the darkness, and Dean realized he still had his eyes open. The slight movement must have been his vision, finally adjusting, and he turned onto his side to try and make out the furniture in the room. He found himself face to face with an old woman. Dean knew the figure lying beside him was a woman because he could smell her perfume. Orangey. The tip of her leathery nose was right up against his, and the whites of her eyes seemed to float in the darkness. The woman's breathing was heavy. He felt it on his lips. Dean bolted upright, swiping at the darkness, and screamed. He tried to get up, but his foot tangled in his bedsheets and he tumbled back down again, right where the woman had been lying. She was still there, and her fingertips reached out to him, plunged into his screaming throat, scratching at his tongue and tickling his tonsils. He gagged, and his screams were cut off. Dean thrashed about on the floor, kicking his sheets away and screaming in horror. His entire body felt like it was made of liquid, and all of it wanted to come up through his mouth. The bedroom light went on.
Dean, my dear boy, what is wrong?
Dean looked up to see Mr. Kurtz standing at the door, finger hovering over the light switch and looking greatly confused. Dean glanced around the bedroom and saw no old woman. There was a bitter taste inside his mouth, but no fingertips. What had just happened?
There was a woman. She grabbed me.
I think you had a bad dream, Dean, my boy. It's not unusual in unfamiliar surroundings. The mind can become quite disturbed, especially when night comes.
No. I wasn't dreaming. She was lying right there next to me in the dark.
You were totally dreaming, dude. You were snoring like a pig.
I was? I don't feel like I was asleep. I don't usually snore.
How would you even know? And you were. I was about to nudge you and tell you to knock it off.
A woman had not broken in to lie with him. Wendell said he had been snoring. Why would he lie?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be trouble.
You're no trouble at all, Dean, my boy. Finish your milk, yeah? And go to sleep. I'm right down the hall and will see you in the morning. Morning.
Dean smiled, nodded, and swigged down the last of his milk from the bedside table. He noticed that Wendell had not touched his. Mr. Kurtz switched the light back off and put the room into darkness once more. Dean lay back down, his body trembling from the fright, but growing gradually calmer.
You okay?
Yeah, it just felt really real. I could even smell her perfume. It smelled like oranges.
Huh.
What? What is it?
Nothing. It's just that my mom's perfume smells of tangerines. When I was little, I used to tell her that she smelled good enough to eat.
Wendell, how did your mother die?
She was sick. It was hereditary, my dad says. Something that runs in my mom's family.
Could you get it?
My dad said that it mostly affects the women in my mom's family, but it's not impossible.
What is it?
Something with one of those long, complicated names. It made my mom really old. I mean, older than she was meant to be. My dad won't tell me much about it, but Mom told me she went into the bathroom one day and she had a wrinkle on her forehead. A few months later, she looked like an 80-year-old woman and started to get really weak. I was only 5. I don't really remember.
Of course. I'm sorry for asking.
It's okay. You're my best friend. I want you to know.
Thanks. You're my best friend, too.
Go to sleep now, Dean.
Okay.
Dean slid back down and tucked himself tightly beneath his covers. It was still cold in the room, and the tip of his nose felt icy, right where the tip of the old woman's nose touched him. He really wanted to ask for the heating to be turned up, but somehow he knew it would only lead to rolling eyes and huffing from Wendell and his father. He didn't want them to find him rude. When Wendell had invited him to stay over, Dean had at first been dubious. He had only known Wendell a few months since the boy had appeared at the beginning of the new school year, a stranger to all. They had quickly become friends, though, despite Wendell being rather quiet and reluctant to make any other friends besides Dean. Dean had liked Wendell enough to risk the bullies and weird looks from the girls. He had never been the most popular kid at school anyway, so what did he have to lose by being friends with an oddball like Wendell? Then, one day, Wendell's father had picked him up from school in a huge silver Bentley, and suddenly the judging looks that the other kids shot Dean's way became looks of envy. They all regretted not being Wendell's only friend. Rumors came out over the following days that Wendell's father was a member of the German aristocracy and that his family had owned a castle in a place called Bavaria. The Kurtz family had come to England, it was rumored, because they wanted Wendell to have an ordinary upbringing. In Germany, they were treated like celebrities, and they did not want Wendell to grow up with a big head. Dean didn't know if any of that were true, and for some reason he had never brought it up. Wendell had fallen asleep, his breathing sounding like a slow-moving train.
Kurtz. Kurtz. Kurtz.
The mad doctor's cooked up something evil in this clever strategy game. Choose a potion card from your hand to add to one of the 3 colored cauldrons, being careful not to let the pot go over a total value of 13. If the cauldron boils over, you must take all the potion cards in it, including any poison. Be the player with either the most or none of any potion color, and you're safe. Otherwise, take the risk of receiving a deadly dose.
Right in your pudding, Pops. Right in your pudding. Oh my
I think you just explained all the rules. So
Yeah, pretty much.
You just saved Chris's
And that
job.
is how you play poison.
Oh, man. Poison. Published in 2005 by many publishers, Playroom Entertainment, Amigo, Yellow, Scorpion Mask, and many, many others. At the time of this recording, its BGG ranking is 2,268.
Wow.
Designer of this game is Rainer Knizia. You might have been able to recognize that from the box art. The guy on the front the crazy-looking guy.
Which everyone can definitely see.
Yes, well, I'm talking to y'all. Is Rainer Knizia there on the box?
Oh, it is him.
It is
Look at that.
indeed, yes.
I recognize that haircut.
Hey, that's right.
Yeah.
That's him.
Yeah.
Well, so a few years
Stirring
back.
it with one of his airline spoons.
That's right. A few years back, when we first started the podcast, we started a thread on our BGG guild taking recommendations for Halloween-themed games. And yes, I am still referencing that.
Nice.
So if you would like to get mentioned on a show, it's a good way to do it.
Who referred this one?
Ultima Ratio,
Oh, man. We got
Paul.
so many recommendations from him.
Paul Suyat.
Yeah, and Paul.
Recommended Poison. So I thought that this would be a good one for this episode. So thanks, Paul, for the recommendation. All right. Brief rule summary for Poison, also known as Friday the 13th, also known as Baker's Dozen, by the way, if I didn't mention that earlier. In the game Poison, players are trying to avoid taking cards, or are they? While at the same time trying to poison their opponents. In the center of the table are placed 3 large cauldrons upon which cards will be played. The deck in Poison consists of 3 14-card suits, red, blue, and purple, with each suit containing 2 4s and then 3 1s, 3 2s, 3 5s, and 3 7s. In addition to these 3 suits are 8 4-value green poison cards. In Poison, players gain points by capturing cards. Each suited card a player collects during the game counts as 1 point against them, regardless of the value of the card, unless they have the most cards of that color of suit at the end of the hand. Then all of their collected cards are worth 0 points. However, each poison card a player collects is worth 2 points, regardless of the number of collected. So even if you collect the most poison, that doesn't help you. You're just going to take 2 points for every poison card. And again, in case it wasn't clear, you want a low score in this game. So
Chris
points
was very
are bad.
good at taking the most poison.
Man, I was crushing it, y'all. Killing it. Each round, all of the cards are dealt out to the players. Play begins by a player playing a single card to one of the cauldrons. The first suited card played to a cauldron determines the color of that cauldron for the rest of the hand. So if I play a red 7 to a cauldron, that is the red cauldron. Now, only red cards can be played there, and I cannot play a red card to either of the other 2 cauldrons. If a player plays a card to a cauldron, and they cause the sum value of cards on the cauldron to exceed 13, that player must collect all of the cards that were on the cauldron, leaving behind the card they just played. It should be noted that the green poison cards can be played into any cauldron, regardless of suit. So you can play them anywhere, whenever you want. Play continues on this way until each player has been dealer once. And at that point, the player with the fewest points wins the game. That's how you play poison.
Good job, Chris.
Ladies and gentlemen. All right. So as we like to do on these themed episodes, we usually ask a theme-based question. So I would ask you, did the spooky Halloween kind of double, boiling trouble, cauldron-y, mixing potions in a cauldron feel come out? Did you feel like you were trying to poison people in this game? Did that come through? What do you think?
Depends. Does math speak Halloween to you?
That's such low-hanging fruit, Jason, on a Knizia game. It's so mean.
I mean, I think I definitely see why you could call this game poison. The number 4 green cards function as a sort of a poison to the pot
Oh, yes.
type of a thing. So, I mean, I can see it. If we were going to be harsh, would we call it pasted on? Like, is it a little telling that the game is also known as Baker's Dozen and something
Right.
else, right? Like,
Yep.
Well, to me, I thought it kind of worked, especially given the fact that one of the incentives is to get the most in a color. So if that's a strategy that you've started to employ and you're taking all the colors, other people know that they're going to start poisoning that pot.
Right.
That you're going to take those colors. And so to me, I did feel that strategy and or feeling that somebody is just taking something away from me because they they poisoned my potion that I wanted. Kind of felt that. So yeah, I thought it was kind of cool.
I totally agree with that. It does become a bit of a blood in the water feeding frenzy as soon as the first person takes the first color of cards, because usually people are trying to hold out as long as possible because of the reason that Bill just said. Once you capture a color, usually, and maybe our group suffered with a little groupthink in this one, and maybe we weren't playing optimally, but usually if you have to take the thing you're going to get the most of, and then automatically that's just an invitation for everybody at the table to just poison the heck out of that thing, right?
Right.
Because they know you kind of want it, right? So you feel that. You feel like you're being poisoned. At least I was.
The interesting thing about that, though, is that if you grab a large chunk of red cards, say, and then everybody gets on the train of like, well, we're just going to poison the heck out of red. Now nobody can take red, or nobody wants to take red.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I still have the most red. So
Right.
somebody's going to have to take it at some point.
yeah, the interesting thing that we noticed happens, and maybe this is by design, is that eventually all of the various pots, the 3 pots, will equal 13.
Yes.
And so it doesn't matter where you place a card, you have to place something from your hand.
Yep. You know you're
And
getting something.
you're going
at
to
that
take
point.
something. And so you have to weigh this decision. Like, do I take kind of a new color that someone hasn't sort of claimed yet? Or do I take the other color that someone already has claimed and try to start competing with that person
Right.
to maybe overtake them? And we saw that happen a few times
Mm-hmm.
where 2/3 of the game, you're like, I'm red, you know, I'm getting all the red cards. And then someone overtakes you and now suddenly you're stuck at the end of the round with 5 points or something like that.
Yeah, I would say that we did find that scenario that you were outlining, Cameron, where the piles were coming up to 13, especially early in the hands once we had learned the game, which means we had played like 2 hands of it, basically. We're coming up to 13, and you were being forced to take something, even if your cards would dictate that you may not want to, was happening quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
A lot, actually, I would say.
I mean, the game's kind of designed to make that happen.
Yeah, I was
right?
gonna
the
say,
way the way the numbers are distributed, it's like he intentionally set up the numbers so that they would, as frequently as possible, add up to 13. Which I mean, is
so
good.
how do
'cause
you
it- 'cause
control it then?
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. I think you're right, but
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just
Yeah.
adding to what you said, and I think that, I mean, in one sense, that speeds the game along, right? So you're not just adding one at a time, and it takes forever
Right.
to get anywhere close to something, but it forces that situation a lot, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, right? But
it's a bad thing.
yeah, I mean, I would tend to think it's a bad thing, right?
Well, I mean,
It's a bad thing.
Because you can't mitigate it. There's not
Right.
really a way to mitigate it. I think your best chance in this game is to assess your hand and say, okay, well, I have a lot of red, and I have a lot of maybe high value red. So I know I can flip red over 13 probably more times than I can a different color. So I have a good chance of grabbing a lot of red. And then you just hope that people don't poison it too many times. That was kind of my strategy going into most rounds
Yeah.
of this. And then it's just kind of the things are going to fall where they fall.
Yeah.
So the cards, I thought the numbering was pretty creative, I guess, as
Sure.
far as being able to naturally get you to 13 in a bunch of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But when you were leading, one of the points of decision, I guess, was, are you going to lead a high card at the beginning, or are you going to lead a low card? Or do you ever save your sevens, right? Or is it always the best strategy to place a 7 on a cauldron at the beginning so that you don't end up having to take a pot?
Right. Higher numbers are more liability, right? Wouldn't you think?
Well, that's kind of my question, because I have an opinion on it, but what do you think?
Well, before I make my statement,
Uh-huh.
you go ahead and make yours then.
Oh, okay.
Complete your thought, because I definitely have a feeling about this for sure.
No, I 100% believe they are a liability, and for the most part, I would play them out early in the game,
Yes.
unless I knew at the very beginning that I was going to be taking the most of a trip.
Right.
Because sometimes you could snipe a pile and get it to 14 before somebody had a chance to put a poison on it, because sometimes it'll go a couple times around, and you can tip it over.
You're saying, and you would want to do that later in the round
Right.
than earlier. Yeah.
And what I would do, partly so that people wouldn't know that necessarily I was going to go for red the whole time, but I would hold my higher ones back so that I could do that at least once, or at least hold one. I would never hold two.
If you think you're going to catch the most of that color, you were saying.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But for the most part, it's just a given that you play your sevens first.
Right. Because they're more swingy, right?
Oh, absolutely.
A 1 or a 2, a card that affects the outcome of the total in a much smaller degree, is just a safer card if you don't want to catch that color, right?
Right. And it ends up the situation where there's 3 13s around, and somebody at the table
Okay,
is going to be there.
So that's a great segue into my point. This is the one last main point I want to make. So I think the mark of any good card game is where you have that hand where you just know how it's going to play out. So again, we reference Teach You often here, but I'll reference it again because I think it's a good example. This doesn't happen all the time in Teach You, because if it did, it wouldn't be interesting. But it does happen on occasion where you'll get a hand in Teach You and you're like, I know exactly how to do this. I know I'm going to go out first unless something crazy happens, like somebody has 2 bombs or something. You just get a loaded hand. And the game has built-in control mechanisms to it to where you know you're just going to control it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you look at it and you're like, I know I'm going out first. In this game, I had a hand where my whole hand was literally nothing but 1s, 2s, and 2 4s. Literally the lowest cards you can have, and it was an equal distribution of colors. So it's not like I had a whole bunch of red.
Yeah.
Literally, if there was a game in Poison where you would think it was the most predictable hand possible, it would be this. Okay? Equal distribution of colors, all the lowest cards possible. I was like, I'm not going to catch anything. In fact, I caught the most of one color
Green?
with 1s and 2s.
I think in that hand I had 7 7s.
Yes, because I had all the low cards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that just showed me there is no control in this game. Because like we were saying, the piles go to 13 all the time. If the piles get brought up to 13, it doesn't matter if I have 1s or 2s. I'm taking them.
Right.
And that's indeed what happened. And so I guess the point I'm making is, for me, for a card game, there has to at least be some of those instances where, like, I know how it's going to go. And in this one, there is no knowing. It's just random.
Mm.
Because there is no hand where you're like, I know how to do this. Because you just don't know what's going to happen in this game. It's crazy.
Right.
The game gives you illusion, I think, of control. And I think you can play your cards intelligently, but in the end, I don't think it really matters.
Yeah. You know, it's wild. I never thought about this stuff before we started a podcast and started reviewing games. Games like this definitely make me wonder, are there games out there that they're not meant to function like some of the games that we really enjoy, like function, right? Where they operate in this very sort of strategic space where you're thinking about things a couple of moves ahead of time and you can math it out a little bit and maybe guarantee on some level that you're going to win, right? On the other hand, there may be games that this falls into that category. It's like, it's more about this sort of collective experience of going along for the ride and laughing it up and like, oh, I can't believe that happened, you know, type of stuff. I don't know. I'm trying to think of another example of games that we've experienced like that. Where
there are a lot of them. Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh man, you know, that was a fun thing and that happened to you. Like I think about like Ink and Gold, you know, like where you can't really strategize about that. That's the most pure push your luck sort of game, you know, and the most fun that we've ever had was with people like Joe, you know, who just like
never stopped.
They're always going to push their luck and then you laugh about it. Right.
Yeah.
Do you think this maybe falls into that type of category versus like a lot of the kind of card games that we really like?
I do. Yeah. I agree with you.
The thing though is, because I agree, but we have games like that, like Ink and Gold, that we love.
Yeah.
That like bring laughs and stuff. In this game, did we have that level of fun? And maybe we're just curmudgeons who are always looking for like games
That's
that
what
have
Bill's
like,
thinking.
They have like deep strategy to them. But
You never want to come to a game party with these guys.
That's not
I'm telling
true.
you.
Oh, man.
that's all I'm saying. We have games that are not 100% strategy that are like those. That's an awesome game.
Yeah.
Ink and Gold.
Camel
or not
Up.
Ink and Gold. Camel Up.
Right.
Yeah,
Camel Up's a lot of educated guessing, I feel like. But it's fun. to
those
see it
games
play
are
out.
like hilarious every time we play them. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
They're not boring and stodgy. Bill,
Wow. Are you looking at me for this game and I haven't even said anything about it?
I know you're judging me with your eyes.
Well, you're right. So true.
What do you think, Bill?
Are we ready for final thoughts?
I think we can be. You want to start us?
Sure. So, yeah, my first line in here is, it's a light game you don't play with curmudgeons. that's right here. The opportunities for strategy aren't really plentiful. I think we kind of called them all out here. Do you play the high card at the beginning or not? Do you hold on to it if you know you're going to be shooting the moon for that color? There's just so many times where you're going to take the poison whether you wanted to or not, kind of thing. And
Or you're going to take the suit whether you wanted to or not.
the suit or not. But I mean, I think for me, most of the time there was choices, like which poison am I going to take, right? Do I think I'm going to possibly get the most in this other suit perchance? And should I try that one as well? That is something really difficult, I think, in this game to do, is to get, at least with 4 players, to get the most in 2 separate suits.
Yeah.
You'd really have to have the right hand for that. And somebody almost isn't paying attention.
And you probably wouldn't want to, right?
Yeah, the
'Cause you
interesting
would just
about
be
that-
taking more poison.
Oh, that's right.
And nobody else is going to take any points if you have all the cards, right?
That's true. Exactly. So, yeah, that's true. Anyway, it was pretty fun. I enjoyed the plays. I mean, it wasn't like I felt like I want that hour back in my life because I didn't have fun. But as far as a rating's concerned, I would put this in a 3 category. We played some really great trick takers, I think, in our last month or 2 months kind of thing.
Shot.
Yeah, Scharfschützen. And this one just doesn't run in that pack to me. So I'm going to give it a 3.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think I sort of gave away my final thoughts a little bit in my previous comments of just this idea of like, okay, is this game in that category of, are you supposed to just have kind of a crazy, zany experience of like, oh, I can't believe that happened, type of stuff? Maybe. But I think when it comes down to it, that's not really the sort of games that I really enjoy playing. Like if I'm going to play a card game, I do want to play something with a little more strategy or, cooperative, like team-based trick taking or other cooperative games. This one just didn't do anything for me. It's hard. I was kind of on the fence with this one. Like, you want to say it's a bad game? Like 2 feels like a little harsh, but I honestly just really was like reflecting on my plays of this one. Like I just didn't feel moved by it, I guess. And I think that's usually 3 territory for me. It's like, okay, it's not bad, but wasn't great. It wasn't super fun. Usually I have this recap of my gaming night with my wife the next morning. Hey, did you have fun? And do I want to tell her about the game that I played? Right. This is not one that I had that experience with. So I think that's a 2 for me.
Or 3.
Or sorry, a 3 for me.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll start by saying I appreciate what this game is trying to do. And that's reiterating what you and Bill just said. I think there is a market for this game. I get it. There are actually a lot of games like this that have these built-in leveling mechanisms that help. What am I trying to say? I guess what I'm trying to say is if you just played all strategy games with like your family that don't play a lot of games, you're going to win all the time, right? And so that's not fun, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're playing with your aunts, your uncles, or your cousins that aren't really gamers.
This is like, I win all the games if I play with my family, so I need some games that have luck in them so that I lose.
That's
every
not what I'm
once in a
saying,
while.
but I think you know the point I'm making here is that there are games that intentionally, by design, throw in random elements as a leveling mechanism.
It may not be fun for everyone else if they're not big gamers.
To give like your kids a chance without you like throwing intentionally, like they could actually win, because there is no control here. I get what Bill is saying about, you should think about throwing your higher cards and ones that you don't want to catch because the lower cards are less of a liability. But when push comes to shove, you can just as easily catch a color in this game with a 1 as you can with a 7.
Mm-hmm.
That is fact. And so because of that, I just have no patience for a game like this. I get what it's trying to do, but it's not for me. This game was a complete exercise in frustration for me. It enraged me at times. I hated this game. This game is a 2 easy for me. I get what it's trying to do, and I could see why other people might like it, but me, hated it. Hated this game. 2. No. Bad.
Sounds like Calamambo. All right, so, man, with 4 reviewers on the show, it's hard to come up with original thoughts going last here. So I'm not going to talk for a long time here. I think you guys have explained it pretty well. I didn't hate this game as much as Chris did, but it just didn't grip me. And I guess the one original thing I'll say is it's real long, considering what it is. And so this is a game that feels like if it was rapid, you were just like playing through a hand, move on to the next hand, play through a hand, move on. But we were thinking about things, and you would think that would
like it mattered.
Yeah, you would think like that would indicate that there's strategy here, but I think we were just overthinking things, trying to figure out what we were supposed to be thinking about. Yeah. It felt long. You play 4 hands. By the time we were on like the second hand, I was like, okay, the game should be done by now. And that's never a good sign when I'm playing any game. So I'm solidly in the 3 camp on this one as well.
Awesome. Look, we didn't tie all the way around this
We
time.
did not.
Yep.
I brought us down.
I'm shocked, Chris.
And I'm proud of that.
All right. Well, our advice is not everything. So folks who want to give it a try, where would they find it?
Yeah, so interestingly, I find this surprising. This game is not readily available right now. This game has been reprinted a bajillion times, again, by different companies and different names.
Under multiple titles?
Under multiple titles. I looked. There's no copies on Noble Knight of this game right now. There are 12 copies on BGG, so you can definitely get it. And they weren't expensive, but I wouldn't consider this to be readily available. But this is not super unknown. I mean, a lot of people, I bet, that's listening to this right now probably played Poison. So you probably know how you feel about it.
I mean,
but
it's also fairly safe to say I think you could probably cobble together like a couple of old playing card decks to make your own if you want to just try it out.
there's not a lot to it. There's not a lot to it, for sure. But yeah, if you want to play it, you can get it on BGG. That's what I'd recommend.
Great.
All right.
Those are our thoughts on Poison. Dean lay awake in bed, listening to the near silence for a while. The smell of tangerines was still on his mind, so much so that he could still detect a hint of it inside his nostrils. The more he lay there in the darkness, the surer he became that he could actually smell the orange fruit, and that it wasn't his imagination. Dean's stomach churned. His breath quickened. He rubbed one of his feet against his shin and dug his toenails in, checking to see if he was dreaming again. He wasn't. The pain in his shin spiked his senses and allowed no doubt that he was awake. Even now, the pain in his shin persisted. It was a cold sensation, making his skin prickle. It turned into a tightening feeling that would not go away, like a rope being coiled around his skin. As the unsettling feeling that something was wrong fell over Dean, he slowly turned his head to the left. He couldn't say why, but he knew there was something there. It was the prickly sensation of being looked at, unexplainable but real. The shadows beneath Wendell's large four-poster bed shifted as something moved slowly towards Dean. The faint shimmer of a face appeared, staring back at Dean. 2 round eyes glowed red. Dean tried to scream, but before the noise could escape his lips, the tightening on his shin became a vice and yanked him towards the bed. In the shadows, a jaw full of countless teeth opened up beneath the evil, staring eyes. A long, ropey tongue shot towards Dean, running beneath his shirt and rubbing along his cold tummy. It felt like an icicle. Dean felt the vice-like fingers around his shin dragging him beneath the bed, and he smelt the acrid scent of oranges, no denying it now. Finally, he was able to scream. He kicked and thrashed with his free leg, grabbed hold of Wendell's bed frame with his hands. The thing pulling at him was far stronger than Dean, but the fear inside of him gave him strength he did not know he had. The light went on. This time, it was the lamp on the bedside table. Wendell was leaning over the edge of his bed, looking down on Dean with a tired, irritated look on his face.
Dean, what are you doing?
Dean looked around himself. His sheets were crumpled and his pajamas were sodden with sweat. His legs were underneath Wendell's bed, but there was no staring face or open jaws waiting for him. Just dim shadows. The bedroom door opened and Mr. Kurtz stood in the doorway. He didn't seem angry, but nor did he seem particularly amused.
What is going on? It's 3 a.m.
3 a.m.? It can't be. We only just came to bed.
You went to bed 4 hours ago, young man. Have you been dreaming once again? Oh, do you have the nightmares often?
Dean climbed back onto his bed, looked around the room, looked at Wendell and his father, and burst out into floods of tears. It was humiliating, but he couldn't help it.
I want my mom.
You would want me to call your parents, yeah? At 3 in the morning, yeah? They may be very upset. Perhaps you should just go back to sleep.
Yeah, stop being such a baby. What's wrong with you?
There was a woman under your bed, Wendell. I want to go home. I want my mom.
Fine, go home. I'm never inviting you to stay again. You're afraid of the dark like a little baby.
No, I'm not. Just call my parents so I can get out of here.
Wendell, come. We will call your friend's parents to collect them. They will be most disappointed, I am sure.
Wendell kicked off his covers irritably and stomped after his father. They closed the door behind them, and Dean was sure he heard it click. He jumped up to his feet and pulled on the handle. It was locked.
Hey, why have you locked the door?
The only reply was footsteps fading down the hallway. From inside the ensuite came the sound of running water. Dean spun around to face the open doorway to the bathroom. The light was off, and he could see only darkness inside, but steam escaped, perhaps coming from the scalding water of the shower. Old cottages had dodgy pipework, Dean knew, but showers did not just switch themselves on. Dean moved away from the bedroom door and crept across the carpet towards the ensuite. Steam continued tumbling out in humid clouds. He felt a sheen developing on his forehead. Besides the hissing of the water, he was sure he could hear something else. A scratching sound. His heart beat hard in his chest, but he was unable to ignore what was going on. He took the final 2 steps until he was right outside the door to the bathroom. He reached inside, fumbled for the light's pull cord, and found something else instead. His fingers touched something slippery and cold. He stared into the darkness, trying to make out what he was touching. The old woman stared back at Dean from the shadows of the bathroom, sucking on his fingers as she did so. When he pulled his hand away in revulsion. The old lady began to cackle. The sound sent a chill down his spine. The woman's cackles slowly turned into a growl, and then suddenly she lunged at him. Dean screamed. His hand found the pull cord and he grabbed hold of it as he stumbled back on his heels. The light came on, and the old woman vanished. Dean whimpered, almost letting out a scream again, but took deep breaths and tried to remain calm. He raced over to the bedroom door and banged on it.
Let me out of here! She's here! I'm not dreaming! She's in here!
There was no reply.
In ages long past, the Master taught you the dark secrets of the undeath. You could no longer perish, and as long as you had fresh body parts available, neither could your local servants, who were coincidentally made somewhat more loyal by the zombification process. But now the Master has fallen, and this time those vile heathens have taken the inconvenient extra precautions of separating and inhuming some integral pieces of his unliving remains. In these dire times, one has to look after his own. And you're a necromancer who is more dangerous than most. You are a necromancer with a business plan. Your zombies will dig up the graves and loot valuables. And while they're at it, they'll grab fresh body parts, so you can make more zombies to dig up more graves. Sounds good, right? Unfortunately, it's so good that other necromancers are after the same cemeteries you are.
Of course they are. like any good Euro game.
Yeah.
Grave business.
Awesome. Good job, Cameron.
Awesome.
All right. Grave Business. Published in 2011 by Minion Games. Designed by Andy Van Zant. Only other notable designs by Mr. Van Zant would be Bottle Cap Vikings
Oh, yeah. Not a good
and
game.
Balloon Pop. Currently ranked on BGG 14,248.
Oh, here we go.
Up and
What's
comer.
up there?
14,000.
This is a hidden one, guys.
Is it higher than Smiley Face?
It might be.
All right. So, rules summary. Grave Business is a worker placement game where players represent evil necromancers intent on acquiring the most riches by digging up graves. Players begin the game with a player board that shows 10 grave sites numbered 4 through 13, along with a laboratory space and a vault. Each of the 10 grave spaces on your player board represents one of the player's worker zombies, or at least potential worker zombies. So before a worker can be used, it must first be constructed from various body part tiles that players will be collecting throughout the game.
It's alive.
Build it.
Each body part tile has a number on it, and once a player has collected enough body part tiles such that their numbers sum to or exceed one of their unused grave sites, the player can choose to construct a new worker zombie on that space. They do this by taking all of those body part tiles, shuffling them face down, and then stacking them on the chosen grave site. And then they take the corresponding worker token for that grave, and that becomes a worker for them. Each player begins the game with 3 workers that are active, the 13, the 11, and the 9 space. Each round of play, players will be placing their workers in various locations, either onto a central cemetery board that's shared by all players, or potentially onto an opponent's player board. So let's talk about this central board first, because that's where the majority of the action is going to occur. The cemetery board is a 4x4 grid with spaces around the perimeter for placing workers. Each of the 16 spaces will be randomly populated with a tile from a bag, and I'll talk more about what those tiles are in a second. Each player's workers have printed on them a number of brains and a number of bones. Brains determine the strength of a worker, whereas bones are a tiebreaker if opposing players match on zombie brain power. So when a player places a zombie onto one of the perimeter spaces, that zombie will apply its strength to each of the tiles in its corresponding row or column, depending on where it's placed. Zombies are placed face down, however, so other players will not know the strength of that zombie. Multiple zombies of the same player influencing the same tile sum their values, like at the intersection of a zombie row or a zombie column. We're playing.
Yes.
Chris is over here. Chris has had too many New York sours.
I just split the uprights.
He did. He just got 3
He's
points.
playing paper football with candy wrappers.
Sorry, Jason. Go ahead. This rules explanation is super boring.
All right. So you're placing zombies around the cemetery. Their brain strength adds together to influence the rows and the columns. Yeah?
Yep.
After all the workers have been placed, each of the 16 spaces is evaluated to determine which, if any, player happens to exert the most influence on a given tile. Player with the most influence takes that tile. So what are these tiles? They can be one of 4 different things. They're either body parts. Are you serious?
Are we distracting you?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. All right, go ahead.
Body
We're going to
parts.
listen. Body parts. Got
Body
it.
parts.
So what are these tiles? They can be one of 4 different things. They can either be body parts. These go to a player's laboratory. They can be valuables, like jewelry and whatnot, paintings.
Very important.
These have a point value printed on them. They go into a player's vault.
How you win the game.
They can be special zombie abilities. These get placed on top of a player's worker body part stack on his gravesite and can be used to trigger special abilities and things. And then there are 3 parts of the master. So these go into a player's vault along with other valuables. They have no point value, but if a player happens to grab all 3 parts of the master and hang on to them by the end of the game, they will instantly win. So that's the central board. There are a couple other places where you can put workers. You can place a worker on another player's vault. This allows you to steal a valuable in a random draw if that worker happens to still be there at the end of the round. You can place on another player's laboratory. This allows you to steal a body part via random draw if that worker happens to still be there at the end of the round. Or you can place a zombie on the attack board. And each zombie that's placed here immediately performs an attack. So in attacking, the attacker chooses any zombie that has already been placed by another player. The attacked zombie is revealed, because remember they're placed face down. And a tile from that zombie's body part stack on its gravesite is flipped over. This game is ridiculous. Some of these body part tiles say the zombie fights back. Most of them do not. If a fights back tile is revealed, the attacker must then flip one of his tiles over from the attacking zombie's pile of body parts. This goes back and forth until either the attacker or the defender flips over a tile that does not have a fights back ability on it, at which point that zombie loses the fight. If the attacker loses, nothing happens, other than that he wasted an action.
Right.
If the defender loses, that zombie is removed from the board for that round. Ouch. Freeing up that action space. In either case, tiles flipped over from a gravesite remain flipped, and if the sum of the numbers on the flipped tiles ever meets or exceeds 1/2 of the total value of that worker, then that worker self-destructs permanently.
Zombies fall apart, man.
Falling apart,
Yeah.
man.
Falling apart. Once all the workers and cemetery tiles have been resolved, players have the opportunity to use their body parts from their laboratory to construct new workers. Like I've said, cemetery board gets refilled, and we do it all over again. The game ends when the cemetery cannot be refilled, at which point the player with the most points from their valuables and their unused body parts wins the game.
Yes.
Unless, of course, someone has all 3 parts of the master.
Oh, yes,
In
it's
which case,
important.
they win.
Outright,
And that's it.
Awesome.
regardless of points.
And that is precisely.
Love it.
That wasn't precisely. There's a lot going on in
There's
here.
kind
It's
of,
not going to make
a lot
sense.
to this game. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worker placement.
I left out a few things. All right. So we started off talking about theme with poison. I feel like we should carry that forward.
Yeah.
This game, if nothing else, is thematic.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. Did you guys get the feeling of being evil necromancers raiding graves, constructing workers from random body parts.
I'll say I did. I'll comment on the art first. I thought the art was just awesome. Each one of the necromancers comes from 4 different realms. There's the mad scientist in the Frankenstein realm. There's a mummy builder.
Egyptian mummies.
Egyptian mummy. I think I was a Louisiana witch doctor kind of thing.
Yes.
And there's another one. Anyway, so I thought all of those kind of hit that out of the park. So it was very, very cool.
Yeah. I think the whole constructing your workers and watching them fall apart thing, that definitely comes through.
Totally.
As very thematic.
This is a great idea, I think. The idea of digging up body parts to construct a worker, and depending on how many body parts you want to use, you can make a stronger worker or a weaker worker, was a really cool idea,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, games always get bonus points in terms of theme from me when not only is the artwork consistent with the theme, but the actual game mechanisms are consistent with the theme, and I do think that comes through in this game.
Yeah, for sure. I would like to comment a little bit more on the worker construction.
Yeah, let's dive into that because I feel like
Aspect.
that's one of the most unique parts about this game.
For sure. That's what I think really makes this game unique and interesting, really, because there's a lot. In my opinion, there's a lot to think about this component of the game. Again, you're placing workers in the graveyard in an attempt to acquire more tiles along those columns and rows to construct more workers, right?
Right.
And so there are a few things to think about here. One, you do have the opportunity when you're collecting things from the graveyard to get treasures. Treasures are super valuable in this game. Mega points, way more than body parts, because unused body parts at the end of the game are worth points too, but treasures are super valuable. But at least early in the game, you are taking into consideration, I'd like to have the treasures because it's a ton of points, but you will find that if you fall behind in workers and everybody has like 4 or 5 workers and you have 3, you kind of feel behind, even if you have a lot of points, right?
Right.
So you kind of want those body parts, although if you could pick up 3 treasures, might be still worth it, right? So that's a good decision point. 2, do I build a really strong worker that's hard to fall apart and has a really strong influence? Or do I
explain what you mean by strong and weak, because I'm not sure that came through.
So if you take a lot more body parts and you create a higher value worker, like a 12 or a 13, his tile that accompanies him has more brains on it. So he's stronger as a worker in his influence. Whereas if you construct like a 4 value zombie, he might just have 1 brain on him. But the trade-off to that is you're getting him out quick, right? So do you want to flood the board with a bunch of cheapy zombies that aren't very strong, but you have a bunch of them? Or you could construct one really strong guy, right?
You also have the strength in terms of how durable they are, right? Because if you remember, you're constructing these things out of body parts and they're numbered 1 to 3, I think.
Yeah.
So the smallest worker is a 4.
Right.
If you construct him out of a 3 and a 1,
Yep.
right? 1 tile flip, most likely.
Be gone.
Right. He could be gone.
Yep.
Versus if you constructed him out of 4 1s, then you know you have at least 2, or you have 3 flips, right? Before that worker self-destructs. So
I totally agree. And I think there was a lot of strategy to that. And I feel like in my games I played, I played it poorly because of kind of the way the attacking mechanism works. Because as the game progresses, there is a big fight over the graveyard, right? There's a fight over the tiles.
Yeah.
That part is pretty awesome. One of the strategies that kind of manifested, if there's a row in there that has like a lot of body parts that certainly you need in the beginning or a lot of points, that you really wanted to bookend both sides of it, right? You put one of your zombies on one side and one on the other, and that would double up your power all the way across that row or column. However, with the way the attacks work, you could drop a zombie on the attack, and then one of the zombies on that row or column has to flip over one of their body parts. And if it does not say attacks back, then they get removed from that column, which ends up being huge. And so what I found in all of this, and it's kind of interesting, is that having smaller zombies was seemingly a really good strategy because you could use that.
People left when nobody else does.
Right. The people left when nobody else does. And you could leverage it to take out somebody that could be way bigger than that number 4 guy. You could take out a 12 guy, right? On that row. And if you're vying for parts on that row, you've just won the lottery kind of thing.
Yep.
To me, it's a fascinating and kind of cool strategy.
Yep.
kind of felt like in a lot of ways like a game of chicken. It's like you want to try to have more workers than other people, and you're trying to hold off on the things you really want as long as possible. So wait until everybody else runs out of workers, and you pick off their workers and sneak into the spots that you need.
Just looking over at Cameron to see if he had anything positive to say about the game before we
had a great experience with this game. So great.
All right, Cameron. How about we move into cons? What wasn't great about this game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like we go this direction like kind of every time a game has more than a little bit of take that.
Yeah.
This game is adversarial.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I mean, you
for sure.
In order to play this game, I think properly, be kind of aggressive. And what's the right word here? You have to yeah, you have to go after your opponents, and you can't be shy about it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of unavoidable.
Yeah.
Right? Like every action is confrontational.
Right.
Every move that you place.
Every move that you do is confrontational, with the exception of maybe taking the start player marker.
Right.
Which even lets you peek at somebody's
Depending
tile,
on
which could be added confrontational.
Right.
But yes, when you place on the graveyard board, you're likely being confrontational with people. Certainly when you place on other people's boards to steal, confrontational.
When
you
attack,
put on the attack,
you're confrontational.
Confrontational.
Every
Right.
single thing that you do is aggressive.
yes.
So bear that in mind if you're considering playing this game. It's hard to maintain, I think, a lot of the positive feels if you're not doing well, because any move that anyone takes is going to make you feel like you're in the target sights.
For sure.
Right.
The last few rounds of this game were just a complete bloodbath.
Yeah.
I mean, totally. It's complete
It's like, I'm
bloodbath.
going to attack you. I'm going to attack you. You
Yeah.
lose your guy. You just wasted your turn. I just exploded your zombie.
I totally agree. And one of the things that I think about this game that if I were to change the design in any subtle way, it might be having a few more or higher percentages of zombie fights back cards in it. Because when we played, we had very few zombies on our teams that fought back to people who attacked.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to have seen more people's zombies fall apart. Because, I mean, it was kind of cool to hear that as part of the rules, and I was kind of nervous about that, and I built bigger zombies thinking that that would be something that happened regularly, but it just didn't happen to many of us at all. And maybe if the game went on a little longer or something, I don't know, that might have happened more. Maybe there's a different strategy that might have made that happen a little more. But I think increasing the numbers of fight backs would have made that something to be a little bit more concerned about when you're making your decisions.
Totally.
I think you summed up my biggest criticism of this game when I was thinking about it, in that as much as the construction and deconstruction of workers is such a cool concept in this game, I found that by the end I was like, we didn't actually use any of these mechanisms at all. It's interesting because it sets things up to be like, well, you know, if you go all low zombies, right? Like all the low numbers, they're going to be super fragile and they're going to fall apart.
Right.
The problem is, though, that when you attack a zombie, you don't know what zombie it is, right?
Right.
So when I attack Chris's zombie, I'm randomly attacking one of his workers.
Yeah,
right?
maybe my strongest guy.
And so in the best case scenario, if he has 3 or 4 workers, I'm randomly attacking your workers and hoping that I knock enough tiles off to kill one of them. That's not a good strategy for me, especially when attacking your workers doesn't really do much for me. It doesn't gain me anything other than it knocks you off of a space that I want. And so
I think that is the main thing that it's meant to do.
Right.
Like it just is like, now I'm not competing against that one of Chris's workers that was opposite of mine.
No, absolutely. Yeah. But if that is your primary strategy, is to attack, you're not going to win because you're not collecting anything. Because all you're doing is you're attacking other people. That in and of itself does not benefit you. You have to attack other people and to be able to place out on the board to gain things. So early on in the game, you don't have enough workers to make it worth attacking other people.
Yeah.
And the longer the game goes on, the more workers everybody has, which means the lower your odds are of actually being able to hit one particular worker enough times to kill it. Right? And so it de-incentivizes you to even try to attack for that purpose. Like, you're still attacking because you want people to be off spaces, right?
Yeah.
But as long as they don't keep going to the one space you care about with the same worker over and over again, which is pretty easy to not do, you're never going to kill a worker. Like, I don't think we didn't see it happen at all.
Like,
so,
I lost that guy. Yeah.
and it's because your odds of actually killing a worker are so low.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And even if you manage to do it, just out of random luck, I hit the same worker of Chris's 4 times in a row and I managed to kill it. By that point, the game's almost all over, right? So any benefit that I get of having killed his worker, because I don't get anything for killing his worker, I just knock his worker out and he can't use it. For what? The 1 round that's left in the game? Like, what good is that? So I think that's kind of where it fell apart for me. Haha. I didn't even mean to do that. But yeah, I when I first heard the rules, I was like, this is a cool mechanism. Like, you have to construct your workers and then they can fall apart. That's awesome. But it never happens.
Right.
And so it's like, well, if it never happens, then of course I'm going to construct my cheapest workers every single time. Because, like, why am I going to spend time wasting my effort to construct a 12 when a 4 will do?
Yeah.
Right.
What's really funny though is that what you're proposing is that actually, like, somehow the game become even more painful.
Well, yeah.
When you get, like, attacked or something like that, right? Because I think,
or maybe if I kill somebody else's worker, I get points or something.
Sure.
Right.
Like, incentivize me to do it.
Should we move into final?
Might as well.
Sure.
Cameron's talking. You're up.
I'm up.
You're up, man.
All right.
Lay it on us.
All right. So it's honestly been a while since I've played a game that had as much take that, like, meanness as this game. I was really grateful that as we were playing it, we were very lighthearted about, like, oh man, you just cracked me over the skull.
We took this one pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah,
given our recent track record.
But there's definitely this aspect of, like, every single person that takes a turn, you're like, seriously? Come on,
dude,
man.
Yeah. Bill and I yelled at Bill a couple times.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Bill.
And
It's okay. I stole your bookend.
You did.
and to be honest, it's
Same
like,
round.
It just about doesn't matter, like, what else is happening in a game. If that's the nature of the game, I'm like, that's not why I came to game night, you know?
Right.
And when I come away from that, it doesn't make me want to play it again. And I mean, that's where I went home and after playing this game, and I was like, I mean, that was fine. I'm glad we got our podcast prep in, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't really want to do that again if I can avoid it. And whenever I feel that, that's two territory, you know, that it's hard to say, like, the two different phrases, like, this is a bad game and I don't like it. Right. And I'm glad that the I don't like it falls into 2 ranking for me. I don't know if it's a bad game. Maybe other people think it's great, but when it comes down to it, I just don't like it. And if you were like, hey, let's play Grave Business, I'm going to be like, I will play something else. I'll sit this one out. So 2.
Okay. So for me, I'm going to give this game a 3. I'll come out and say it right away. And I feel kind of bad to give it a 3. The reason being is I do think this game has a lot of really good ideas in it. Honestly. The worker construction component and figuring out how to make stronger or weaker workers, and then the whole idea of collecting components to create more workers as opposed to having a spot on a board where you can get another worker like most worker placement games.
Yeah.
You're actually building it with components you've collected in prior rounds. I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact we never even really talked about this in review, this whole idea of the master, where if you get all 3 pieces of the master out of the graveyard, you just win at the end of the game if you have them. And Jason got close to doing that in one of our
Except
games.
it's a random draw, and you never randomly draw the right thing.
Well, sure.
If you're me.
I'm just saying that you had 2 of the 3, and in the last round you were gunning to get the 3rd, and it added tension to the game because the threat of you pulling it off was there.
Right? It's a 20% chance.
I mean, it was close.
Yeah.
So, like, that was good. But my gosh, is this game confrontational?
Yeah.
I mean, it is so harsh. And confrontational in a way where there's just a lot of loss. You know, Bill, you talk about this a lot, the psychology of loss aversion. I don't necessarily shy away from harsh games, but this game is harsh in a way that it just doesn't really make you want to come back. And that you just get things taken from you all the time in this game. Take this, take that, I take this, you lose that. There's just loss, loss, loss. And as I thought about this game, every time I thought about, do I want to play Grave Business again? No. Because I didn't want to go through that.
Right.
I didn't want to put myself through that.
It's some grave business.
It is. It's a grave business. I was like, do I really want to go through this process of having all my stuff stolen and my workers killed? No, I don't. It's too much. So to me, I think that component of it pushed me down to a 3. I think there are people that will like this game. If you like that degree of meanness, I think it's way better than being in the 14,000s. Like I said, I think it's got cool ideas. It's just a little too harsh for me. So I'm going to give it a 3.
All right. I will come out and say that I'm giving this a 3 as well, but for slightly different reasons than Chris. The confrontational aspect of this, it's definitely there. 100% it's there. I didn't feel it, for whatever reason, in this game. I didn't feel it quite as harshly as I have in some others.
I think I might know why that is. But go ahead, finish.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you have to say. I think the reason why I'm giving it a 3 kind of goes back to what I ranted about earlier, which is that as cool as the ideas are in this game, it felt like they were underutilized. It felt like there was a balance issue somewhere where those ideas just didn't shine through, right? It's like cool idea after cool idea, except I played through the whole game and never used any of them or never saw any of the things actually happen or actually impact the gameplay. And so that's just kind of disappointed me, I think, when I was like initially excited by the prospect of like what this game could have been. And then you play it and it's like, oh, I don't really see how those mechanisms would ever really come into play because of the way the game is structured or because of the way the game is balanced. And so because of that, I think that's why I landed on a 3. I do want to hear your thoughts.
So quickly, in the games that we played, I noticed that you went for getting a lot of workers.
Yeah.
And you always had more workers than we did. And so that
true.
actually protects you from being attacked because we all knew that if we knocked you off of a spot, you would just go right back. And so because of that, people weren't going after you as much because it didn't make sense to. You know, because you could just reclaim
and
the
with
spot.
a lot of workers, I'm inherently going after other people.
Right.
Because the central board fills up quickly. And once that's filled up, it's like, well, I have 3 workers left. I guess I'm just going to attack them.
Right, exactly. And inflict pain on everybody. Yeah, totally. Which is what you should do.
Right.
In that position.
Yeah, well, that was good. I mean, Jason, I think I've kind of aligned with your thoughts. I do feel like there's so much potential here, and it wasn't realized. I feel like if this had been play tested like 5 more times or something like that, there were some tweaks that they could have made to just made this a great game. I don't know if there's any ways to house rule some of these things, because I do think having zombie fights back more would actually go a long way to fixing this game, because
You think twice about it.
you'd think twice about it, and that would at least engage some of the rules that are in here. You would actually see them manifest themselves, and maybe just playing it one more round or something so that you could see some of your zombies deplete, maybe 2 more rounds or something. I don't know. It might make the game too long for what it is. But anyway, I'm kind of in the 3 world as well, but it just pains me to do it because, Chris, I'm like you. I think there's just so much to this game that is cool.
Good ideas here.
And I also feel like there was a lot of take that, but there was like, that's what this game is, right? This is a take that game,
Right.
and it really didn't bother me that much. It was like, okay, that was a good move. You just stole something from my vault. It was like, oh, I hate
like,
that, but I'm going to steal
Of course
some from you
do,
now.
because I have a lot of high point value tiles, and there's a space there where
Exactly.
it says you can steal
Exactly.
one.
Exactly. So, I mean, to me, there was no animosity towards it. It was like, well, that was a good move. And or the strategy of, I'm going to attack you here in the last round and take you out of that road that I know that you really want.
Oh
is
boy,
like,
that's the worst. Too. Oh my gosh.
yeah, because I mean, it really hurts because you're like planning, because that can like really screw you up early.
You
when
can
you're
go from getting 4 tiles to getting maybe 1.
right, exactly.
Yeah, which is a killer.
It is a killer, but I mean, to me, it's like this is strategy, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it is strategy at his best because it's not luck, right? And you could play with the first player marker and move things around, and maybe that's when you needed to be 1st or when you maybe needed to be last.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, I think this game is ripe for a lot of different strategies, and I really thought hard about giving it a 4, but
I did too.
Partly because I wondered if you could like put a little tape on a couple of those things and make the zombie fights back or something to just make this an awesome game.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no copies at Noble Knight. However, there are 11 copies on BGG at pretty reasonable price. So if you want to give it a try, kind of explore this game, I think it's an interesting exploration in the worker placement genre. It's worth looking at. Again, I will reiterate, way better than 14,000. I think that's just because not a lot of people have played it. It's not horrible by any means. All right. Those are our thoughts on Grave Business.
Wherever Wendell and his father had gone, they could not hear him. Or they were ignoring him. The shower was still on, and the entire bedroom was now full of steam. He hurried into the ensuite, praying out loud that the old woman would be nowhere to be seen. The shower was spitting with venom, the water in its pipes too hot and coming out more gas than liquid. Dean had to be careful to avoid scalding himself as he reached in and turned the knob. The shower stopped spitting, and the steam dissipated. He sighed, wiped his forearm over his glistening head, but then noticed something on the mirror above the sink. He stepped cautiously towards it, and then read the words, scratched through the condensation.
Don't look under the bed?
The lights in the bathroom began to flicker, then they went off. Dean leapt back out into the bedroom where it was still light. He spun around to face back into the darkness of the ensuite and saw the old woman looking back at him. She did not cackle this time, only stared at him hungrily. Her hair was matted and gray, like the wool soaking in a muddy puddle. Her face was an intersection of deep grooves and furrows, wrinkles deeper than any he had ever seen. Her eyes were smoldering coals. Dean couldn't look away. If he did, the old woman might just reach out and grab his neck and pull him into the shadows. He backed away slowly, keeping eye contact with the glaring old woman. As he walked backwards, his foot caught on something and got tangled up. He stumbled on his rolled-up bed sheets and tripped backwards. It didn't hurt, as he landed on the inflatable bed, but it caused him to take his eyes off the old woman. And when he looked up again, she was gone from the bathroom. Dean heard the cackling right beside him and turned to face Wendell's bed. Beneath it lay the old woman, staring out at him and grinning unnaturally wide. She reached out from the shadows and grabbed him by both ankles, and slowly started dragging him toward her open jaws. Jaws that became wider than her entire head. Dean screamed. The bedroom door opened. Mr. Kurtz and Wendell stood there, looking down at Dean. Dean reached out to them and pleaded.
Help me! Do you see her? Do you see her?
Yeah, young man. We see her.
Wendell reached over and switched off the bedroom light, while his father pulled the door closed and enclosed the room in darkness. The last thing Dean heard was the sound of the bedroom door locking behind them, and the cackling of the old woman as she dragged him beneath the bed toward her jaws. The smell of oranges was replaced by the smell of his blood. Wendell awoke in his bed late, for he had gained little sleep during the night, thanks to the constant noise of his friend Dean. He had whimpered and begged for hours, trapped and moaning beneath the bed, until Wendell could barely stand it any longer. It had been nearly dawn before he finally got some shut-eye. He woke up now and dangled his legs over the side of the bed. His mother was already awake, stepping out of the ensuite and drying her hair, while spraying her orange-scented perfume about her smooth, slender neck. She looked well, young and vibrant. She smiled at her son when she saw him.
Rise and shine, Wendy. I thought you were never going to wake up.
I couldn't sleep.
Sorry if I kept you up.
It's okay, Mom. You have to eat.
Yes, it had been so long. I needed it very badly. I enjoyed your friend.
Me too. I'll miss him.
There will be plenty of more friends to make, little Wendy.
I know there will be more friends, Mom. I just find it so hard having to make such an effort. Can't we just take boys for you to eat?
And have ourselves hounded and hunted like we were in Germany? No, Wendy, this is a new start for us. We have to be careful. One day, you may need to feed too, if you want to stay young.
I can't wait. What is it like to feed?
Glorious. But it is not for young boys. And we do not know yet if you'll take after me and not your father. Now, what would you like to do today? The zoo? Shopping? It has been months since I was well.
Let's go bowling. I'll go ask Dad. What's he doing?
He's in the stables, disposing of young Dean's parents. He called them in the night to collect their son, but of course, they were never to know the truth. They've been dealt with. We will speak no more of Dean and his family.
Okay, I'll make a new friend on Monday.
Yes. Do make sure you bring them around for dinner. A dark void is opened, and undead creatures are attempting to enter our world. You are a team of uniquely skilled guardians who must work together to send them back to their unholy land. Every moment, the undead grow more powerful and threaten to overwhelm. Can you complete the banishing and close the void before a terrible evil destroys us all?
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Good luck.
No, you can't.
We can do this, guys.
Maybe on a fourth attempt.
You're a dreamer.
The Banishing, published in 2017 by WizKids. At the time of this recording, its BGG ranking is 5,617. Designer of this game is Sean Rumble. This is his only published design. This game was again recommended to us on our Halloween episode guild page by Emperor Penguin. Made a couple of recommendations in the past.
Love that name.
That's pretty cool, right? All right. Brief rules summary for The Banishing. The Banishing is a cooperative game. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You heard that right. Where the players take on the roles of D&D style heroes fighting together to banish evil undead monsters from their realm. The Banishing consists of a deck of 98 cards and 8 character sheets. The deck is made up of 54 symbol cards, 38 undead monster cards, and 6 item cards. The symbol cards come in 3 different colors, and each color comes in 3 different symbols. The undead monster cards show only a single number on them, which is how much damage a hero will take if they collect that undead monster card. The item cards are useful cards that the players can collect to help them win the game. Each player is dealt 3 symbol cards to start the game. Then all of the cards are shuffled or falling apart. And the top 9 cards are laid out in a 3x3 grid known as the Void. This display will show some combination of symbol cards, undead cards, and item cards. On a player's turn, they will do 2 things. First, they will take a row or column from the Void. So again, the Void is a 3x3 grid of cards. So you can take any orthogonal row or column of 3 cards, but no diagonals.
What's a non-orthogonal row?
A diagonal.
Diagonal, whatever, man. Any symbol cards collected are added to their hand. Any undead monster cards collected go next to their character sheet as damage. It's important to note that each character class has 2 numbers on its character sheet, a smaller number, which is its stamina, and a larger number, which is its health. If the numerical face value of undead cards next to a player's character sheet equals or exceeds their stamina, they are exhausted and they can no longer use their unique abilities. If the value of undead cards equals or exceeds their health, they are defeated and the entire team loses the game. Once a player has taken their cards from the Void, the empty spaces are refilled with new cards from the deck. Now, the second thing a player will do on their turn after they've collected their cards from the Void is use an ability. So again, each character has unique abilities and then shared common abilities. So the shared common abilities are things that everybody can do. They're not unique to any character. Everybody can do them. So you can either swap cards in the Void, so exchange 2 cards position in the Void. You can trade cards with another player, or you can rest, which lets you eliminate your lowest valued undead from next to your character sheet. Now, where the game gets really interesting are the unique abilities. Every player has a character sheet that has 6 unique abilities, and they're unique. No character has the same abilities. They're color-coded. Every player has 2 red, 2 green, and 2 blue unique abilities, and these colors correspond with the symbol cards that are present in the game. So, if I have 3 red cards in my hand, I can spin those to perform the weakest red ability. However, the other red ability, if I have 3 red cards in my hand and the symbols on them all match, so that's harder to pull off. Got to do a little bit of hand management, but that lets you do a more powerful red ability. The red and the green abilities have to do with healing each other of wounds and managing the Void. However, the blue cards, and this is very important, allow each player to do something called a banishing. So banishing is where you remove a card from the deck and put it off to the side. If you're able to banish 10 cards during the course of the game, you win. Okay, so that's what you're ultimately trying to do. The players will lose if a player dies, if all players are exhausted, or if they have failed to complete the banishing, so gotten 10 cards in the banishing after cycling through the deck a third time. That's generally how you play the banishing.
Well done.
All right. That is hard to do when people are playing paper football while you're doing rules, but I stayed true to myself and I powered through.
As did I.
Yes, you did. All right. So staying on with theme again. This game, it's Halloween-y themed in that you're banishing vampires and werewolves and ghouls and goblins and such, but you're kind of playing D&D characters, right? So D&D classes like your bard and your sorcerer and things like that. Do you feel like that theme came through in this game, either in the art and or the mechanisms of the game?
I mean, I will say it did feel like the different classes were different in their special abilities. Like your big brute fighters, your tanks, you know, have the high stamina and the bash everything type abilities.
Right.
Whereas you have your more nuanced characters like the bard or the thief, right? And
Yeah,
it
the
did
thief
feel
is all like luck based.
Yeah, it's like you
The bard
gamble
like
to do your
lets other
banishing.
people do stuff.
Yes, a commander type role, or controller rather. Yeah.
So not being a very experienced D&D player, I will say, I mean, it did feel like there were at least some noticeable differences that, you know, made the classes feel unique. But,
Yeah, I mean, in terms of theme, like it does kind of tightly align with a Halloween sort of a theme. I mean, yeah, like there's always the sort of the fear of monsters, right? It may not be maybe the most traditional sort of Halloween theme, but definitely if you had said this is an adventurer D&D type theme, I would say you definitely feel that. You feel the need to play to your allies' strengths.
Yeah, for sure.
And that sort of thing, and cooperate the way that you would if you were playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
Yeah, I felt like the way that they divided up the abilities on the cards and divided them up into, like you're saying, the sorcerer, the barbarian, the fighter, the bard, the thief, they all really felt like they were matching what that theme was. So it felt kind of cool in that aspect. So I thought they did a really good job of thinking through what it would look like to be that character in the context of what the game was. So I thought it was awesome.
I totally agree. I remember at one point in one of the games that we played, of which we played this game several times, I knew Cameron was playing a sorcerer, and he did something in the void where he did like this AoE effect where he killed like a whole bunch of undead in the void.
Fireball.
And I was like, is that fireball? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, cool. Having a knowledge of D&D, I was actually able to decipher what spell they were going for. I did not know that. I just guessed. But the ability that he performed made sense to me and resonated with me and my knowledge of D&D, right? Yeah, that makes sense. That's what that character should do.
Right.
So it was kind of immersive in that way. I appreciated that effort, I think.
In addition to the fact that the way that the different character stats are oriented aligns with it, right?
Oh, yeah, they're squishy guys.
The wizard and the sorcerer are squishy, and the brute and the fighter are tough.
Yeah.
The other cool part about like the fireball, once you kind of get an idea of what other people do and the fact that it's a co-op game, that will take out a 2x2 square, I guess, of things around. So you can talk ahead and say, hey, if you group these undead monsters in this 4 grid, be able to take them out next round.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the things that surprised me about this game that I really enjoyed is, you know, I think certainly there's a lot of emphasis that, as there should be, on the individual character abilities that you're playing, right? That's what I think in a lot of ways gives this game flavor. And yet I really felt a need, and I think you guys did too, of not neglecting the standard actions that you can take. And that made an impact on me just because I feel like I've played a lot of games like this that have this sort of list of standard actions, and they tend to become this thing of like, well, if you can't do anything else, then do those things. And I think because this game is cooperative, you're actually really incentivized to pay close attention and maybe even give priority in some cases to those standard actions on your turn.
They're not throwaway.
Maybe you're sitting there holding cards that you could play one of your special actions. It's still worth it in many cases to go, does anyone need a card? Would it help anybody if I swapped some cards here? Right?
Yeah.
Might actually keep you from losing.
Exactly. And because it's a cooperative game and because you're going to lose if you don't think like a team, I thought that was cool that sometimes the best thing that you can do is not to play your special moves and to just do something that helps the guy next to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the other interesting things about this game is that co-ops get a bad rap because of the quarterbacking issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Totally.
very easy
Yep.
to just say, well, you should do this because that's the best move. Like, go do this, go do that. I don't know. I felt like in this game, it did a great job of balancing having enough information about other players' characters that you're like generally aware of like what they're capable of, but you have enough abilities that there's no way that I'm going to remember what they all are. I
Yeah.
can barely remember what mine are. I'm constantly referring to my sheet, right? And that does an incredible thing in that we all collectively kind of understand the boundaries of what's possible and can all sort of strategize around, oh, well, if we can like move these cards around, that would be awesome. But I don't know exactly what your abilities
Right.
are. And so I can't be like, well, Cameron, you should play your special green ability right now because that's the best thing for us. Right? Because I don't know what your special green ability is because I can't keep track of that in my head.
Or whether I can
So-
play it, yeah.
And so you still have that possibility of like, well, I know what my special abilities are and I know how they can contribute. I don't know. I don't think I'm explaining it well, but it helps
You are.
prevent that quarterbacking feeling
Yeah.
because you have your own sense of agency around your own abilities because only you know what they are.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're secret, but it's just because there's an information limitation, right, of what
Yeah.
other people can hold in their brains.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I found this to be one of the better balances of those two things where it's like everybody collectively knows the goal and knows what's possible because the decision space is relatively small. It's a 3x3 grid of cards that can move around or you can get rid of stuff. But everybody has their own unique take on how that can happen. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I could not agree with you more. I had the same exact thought. You know how I feel about co-ops and quarterbacking. It's just what kills them for me. If you think about it in a 4-player game and every character has 6 unique abilities, that's 24 unique abilities that are at play in the game, plus the 3 common. So what you got 27 abilities that are available to the team at any one time. And like you said, Jason, you can't really keep up with all of them, nor do you really want to. Like a game like Pandemic, I'm not saying Pandemic is easy to win. I'm just saying it's easy to track what's going on in Pandemic. It's very easy to know on each player's turn what is happening and what they can do
What's possible, yeah.
and what's possible. And it's just too easy and too tempting to be like, you should do this.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with you, Jason, this game, because there's so much possible and you don't see what they're holding in their hands. The ability to quarterback, it's just lessened
yeah.
significantly. And I agree. I felt like we weren't quarterbacking this game. I felt like we were cooperating.
Right.
Yeah, it was like,
Go
I-
figure.
It was like I could really use this green card. I'm not even really going to tell you why because like you're not going to understand necessarily.
I just
but, like,
need it. Yeah.
But like I could use it. But at the same time, like if it's better for you to have this other card, you think that's better, then let's do that because that sounds like an awesome idea.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What do
Totally
you think,
agree.
Bill?
I agree with all that. And I think you just hit the nail on the head there, Jason, when you said that it is kind of a request thing, that you kind of trusted everybody else to know that they were trying to do the best thing. And then that was kind of the interaction is, I need this card. What do you need? And so it really was a generous sort of feeling versus, I'm going to tell you what to do thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Even though there were some overall strategy things that developed as we started figuring out this game, because this game does have a story arc as kind of like, as you understand how difficult it is, because this game is really hard.
We didn't win.
No.
I think we should say that. We never won.
No.
Yeah, it's a good thing though. To be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. No, it was funny because I was poking around on BGG and I saw other people where it looked like they did win. Some said it's kind of hard. And I was like, what? You didn't think this was like really freaking hard? I mean, what did you do? So because we don't know how to win right now, but I don't know. I will talk about that, I guess, later. But it is interesting to think through in the situation that we're in right now where we didn't win. Is it the cards? Is it that we didn't figure out a synergy between the characters? Is it, what is
Did
what
we
is
just
happening?
get unlucky in the way the deck shuffled
Right,
the
right.
monsters
Right
back
now.
in?
Right.
Because I think we're trying to cooperate as much as we possibly could.
Yeah.
It was like, I have thoughts about that too.
Well, anything you guys didn't like about this game?
It's It's hard.
It's hard.
You did mention that you don't think that's a bad thing, and I agree with you. Nothing puts me off. Well, I shouldn't say that. There are a lot of things that put me off about co-op
Lord of the
games.
Rings co-op game,
But-
that put you off because it was hard.
Yeah. I am put off when it's too easy to win.
Right.
I think you should lose the first time.
Right.
Even the second time. Once you get up in like the fourth and the fifth time, then you're like, okay, is it because we just suck? Maybe. Or are we just getting rough runs of cards? Because I do feel like in a couple of our games, just the way that the shuffles occurred, especially in the later rounds, I'm like, I don't know if there's anything we could have done
Right.
Yeah,
to save us, because we just happened to hit a big run of undead, like
Right.
just in a row. Boom, boom,
Right,
boom, boom, boom,
right,
boom. And
right.
if that happens, I mean, you're probably just finished at that point. And
Right.
is that just because of how the shuffle fell? That's a nagging thought that always bothers me about co-op games. Even if we were experienced,
Right.
expert players at this game, were we doomed from the start?
From the beginning.
You know, that's
Yeah.
always a nagging feeling I have in games like this. And I wonder about that a little bit in this game.
That's your exact same thought that you mentioned when we were reviewing the Lord of the Rings co-op game. Like when we shuffled those initial tiles that we're gonna have to flip over on a return,
Were we doomed?
did we already lose
Right.
because of this one element of randomness that
Mhm.
you know kind of had to be injected into the game, or
Yeah.
there wouldn't be a game.
This does feel like a game that you kind of have to play the perfect game. So when the cards actually play in such a way that you could win, then you will win. But if you're not playing in a perfect way, then you're not gonna win. And or you could play in a perfect way and the cards don't come out, then it's not gonna play. So you got to be willing to play it multiple times to get that perfect win. It did feel frustrating at times, partly to what Chris said, that there's sometimes we were just dumped on and there was just nothing we could do about it. However, because I was playing with, a bunch of guys I like playing with, and I felt like we all had kind of the
Aw.
goal.
Oh,
that
you like playing with us
well,
now.
I mean, don't let that get out. I'm glad
I thought we were fun suckers.
Mostly you are, and especially in co-op games. But I think I'm like helping you turn the corner on that, Chris. But I mean, I did feel like it was a common goal, and it was one of the ones. I don't know how this does it, but we've played a few co-op games where it is like the flip of the card. Right when we played was a flashpoint. I mean, even when you win, it's like, was it because of the cards, and was it because of our strategy, and maybe that was too easy, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Flashpoint was a little too easy, I think.
Right. And then if it's too hard, it's like, well, it was too hard and it really wasn't related to our strategy. This one, I feel like you're going to get a lot of bad cards. I do think there's a path to victory, and I do feel like we all feel like there's a way that we would have to play it really well to get it across that line. And I think we would have that band of brothers feeling afterwards that we got it. And this is one of those, I don't know. It's just weird to me how a game can get to that point, because I don't think it's necessarily great. I think this game has flaws. I think there's a lot of things that are not necessarily the best about this game, other than the fact that I think we all know we could win. I think there's some strategies we could do to make it go. And I just felt like when I got through with it, it's like, let's do this again because I want to win it.
It did have that just one more time feel to it. You know?
Right. I will say one last thing is that I feel like it would be kind of one and done, because I think once we win, I'm not sure I necessarily want to come back to it and do it again.
Really? Not even trying it with a different class?
Maybe. I don't know how far that would go, because, I mean, once I do it with two classes, would I want to do it again? I feel like it just doesn't have super long legs.
Do you feel like it's like solvable?
I don't know. I think there's probably something we'll find out things that are better than others.
Yeah.
And I think we'll find things that are like, this is not a way to win.
Okay.
Not solvable so much as maybe like the amount of effort it takes to actually get the perfect win. If there is that degree of like the random shuffle factors in, it's like, well, we got it once. Do I really want to like play 6 more times to get the good random shuffle so that I win again? You know?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to give it a 4 just because this has been a bad night for games. but part of it, I mean, really is it comes down to the point is once I got done with it, I really wanted to play it again. And I think that there's some value in that. So I'm going to give it a 4.
All right.
I'm going to go next so that I don't have to go last.
Okay. All right.
We go all 3 of these reviews.
Yeah.
I fall in the same category as Bill. I'm going to give this a 4. That said, I will say this is one of the most enjoyable co-op games that I think I've played for all the reasons that we've already named, in that it felt like we were cooperating. We weren't We weren't just solving a puzzle where somebody had more insight into how to do it than somebody else, and the quarterbacking comes into play. That said, I mean, it is hard, and I do think there is a randomness aspect to it. So, like Bill said, I question if once I beat it, if I would really want to play it more. I think that's probably, personally for me, probably a con to pretty much any co-op game that's out there, though, right? Once you beat it once, it's like, well, why do I want to keep playing it, right?
Yeah.
I found that in like roguelike games, like
Yeah,
video
I was
games
gonna say it's
that
like
I
a
played,
video game thing, right?
Like it's once you get to the end and you beat it, even though it's a roguelite and there's more achievements that you can get or there's more things that you can unlock or whatever, it's like, well, unless you give me a reason to do that is more than just unlock all these things because they're there, I'm not going to do it. And so that's my personality. So take that for what it is. I will say the only game that has ever pushed me past that video game wise is Hades. And I'm surprised that you have not played that yet, Chris.
I got to get on it.
Anyway, I digress.
Still working on Cult of the Lambs.
Yeah. So I give this one a 4. I think it's a fantastic co-op game. Definitely has that. Let's just play it one more time. We got to get it. We got to get it beat. After that, once we beat it, I don't know. And so for that reason, I can't give it higher than a 4. But
maybe we'll learn what that feels like one day.
Yeah, maybe.
At this point, I'm not sure if we
Maybe
ever
not.
are.
Yeah. So, yeah, 4 from me.
Yeah, it's awesome. I don't have a whole lot more to add. I totally agree with what Jason just said. A co-op game, finally, where you feel like you're cooperating and not micromanaging each other's turns. So refreshing. If you listen to this podcast for any amount of time, you know I'm not a huge lover of co-op games. This one is a good one. I was so encouraged and having a lot of fun at how much we were just like, oh, I won't do my really cool special thing that I could do because I'm going to swap these 2 cards on my turn so you can do an awesome thing on your turn. That's a special thing if you can accomplish that in a co-op game because everybody wants to do their cool crap, But I feel like in this game...
Bill theming all the blue cards the first time we
played. Right. Yeah, because I feel like...
I deserved him.
Because it felt like what we needed to do to win.
Yeah.
Because the game is hard. And I felt like we were working together and we weren't telling each other what we should be doing. We were asking each other, what can I do to help you help us? You know what I mean? So I think it succeeded there. It is hard. There are probably some games where you just can't win. We might be wrong about that, but that might be true. But I will say the variability of the classes, again, and playing with a new character and seeing how they're different, what they can do, keeps it fresh to where I would be interested to keep coming back to it as well and keep trying it and trying new things. So I also really liked this game. For a co-op game, I think it's good. It's one of the few co-op games I actually enjoy. I'll give it a 4 also.
Sweet. Well, I don't mind going last. I really enjoyed this game. It was very refreshing to come back after a big break like I've had from playing games to get to play a game like this one and to really find myself not just being at the table and like, all right, I'm going to prepare to review a podcast game and, give it my best shot, but to be like, I'm having fun.
Yeah.
And when we would lose and then immediately run it back, I would be like, yes, let's go. I'm gonna try a different guy this time, whatever. And I did have that sense of real cooperation, real working together, and that self-sacrifice of my turn to, maybe someone else could do something that's better. My thing's not that great, that kind of thing. That is rare, I think, in a lot of co-op games. I did really like the fact that this game has that thing where you have a special character, you've got special moves, but those standard actions are still really, really important. That doesn't happen a lot in a lot of these games where it's like, usually the standard action is like, okay, you can't do anything else, so you just do one of the standard actions.
When you're exhausted, you can still contribute in a meaningful way.
Exactly, right. And we did that. There were a couple times where like you're exhausted and it's not like your default move is just to rest.
Right.
Now, sometimes it is, but sometimes it's like, you know what? I'm going to stay exhausted because the thing that the team needs right now is for you to be able to do something awesome by me swapping out these 2 cards or by me giving you the good card that I have. And there were times where it was like, that's what the team needed. That's cool to happen in a co-op game. And that's what makes this game good, I think. I was thinking about your thought, Jason, about replayability and like, okay, once I beat, if we beat the game, would I really want to play it again? maybe it's like one of these video games. I'm not sure that that's like a bad thing. Like I know we talk about replayability. We've talked about it on Backstage before, and we value it, I think, in terms of a thing of like, this game's only really good if it's got this long legs, like replay value.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not a thing. Like maybe like it is more like a video game where, hey, I did it. I ascended the hill and I don't need to ascend that hill again.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe
Absolutely.
maybe that would be awesome if there were games like that where it's like, yeah, we tried that. We tried it. We took us 8 times to play that game and we've got 8 hours invested in a game and then we beat it and like, sweet, done. You know,
You get 8 hours out of a game these days. That's like,
right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Good.
Well,
that's a win.
and for that matter, if I spend that much time, if I have that much fun for 5 or 6 plays of a game with you guys, and then I go and I have other groups of friends that like to play
No
games.
way.
We have friends from church that yeah, that we've like started to kind of occasionally meet up and play games with.
I have other friends too, guys.
and I could imagine
No,
this
it's
game.
unbelievable now.
I could imagine this game being one that I would go take to that group of friends and be like, hey, why don't we try this out? And then they get into it, you know,
Right.
and then they have the same experience that I had the first time I played it. And then maybe I'm having that new experience with a new group of people. That's cool. That's a different take, I think, on replayability.
Yeah.
And I think this game kind of has potential for that.
Yeah.
So that's a long way of saying I'm also going to give this game a 4. I kind of was like between a 4 and a 5.
I
on
wondered
this
if
one.
you might get us a 5.
Yeah,
I feel like when
I
we were
mean-
playing it, every time you were like just pumped to
Dude,
play it again.
I had a freaking blast playing this game. So, I mean, I really am. I think still between that
Yeah.
4 and 5, I think people on the guild have pointed out like my average is actually lower than everyone else's on my ratings of games because I'm real stingy with my 5s and 6s. But I do feel like that, like in between the 4 and the 5 on this.
Yeah.
But I'm solidly on a 4 for Banishing.
It's a good one, folks.
Yeah, very cool. So, where do you get it?
Yeah, well, there are some copies available on Noble Knight.
Noble
It's-
Knight.
It's not a super old game.
What's Noble Knight?
Noble Knight are our friends to the north in Michigan, our sponsors, as a matter of fact, and they gave us a discount code. So if you would like to use that code, that's GEMS10 off. That's GEMS10 off. Get 10% off your order if you order through them, and we'd appreciate it because they're good people. You can also get it on the BGG Marketplace. There are 2 copies. A little bit harder to find this one, which is a shame because it's a good one. Really is. I this one impressed me, so it sounds good. Get it while you can. It's a little bit rare.
Cool. And those are our thoughts on banishment.
The Banishing.
That's what it's called.
Oh,
Epic fail.
Try and get
Bill.
Bill.
wow. Okay. And those are our thought on. That's our thought. And those are our thoughts on the banishing.
Nice. Well,
Oh, do
Albert-
I need to do the outro or?
well, I mean, we gotta talk about poor Dean.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's wrapped up.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's rough.
yeah.
Man, Vin,
Like I said-
you're a bad man.
He was,
Like I
he was
said.
eating, but it went to a good cause.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Quite unsettling. The most unsettling thing is actually Wendell's weird curiosity about what it's like to feed.
Yeah. That part's weird.
That's the part that's going to keep me up at night. It's just-
That part might not make the final cut. I don't know.
Oh, it totally will. Come on. You got to have a little horror in your horror story. You got to quit being so wimpy.
So yeah, the weirdest part is Chris picking this out.
Oh,
So,
dude. I'm on a roll and I'm in my element right now. Love this Halloween stuff. Such a fun season, man. I think I've said on the podcast before, I just look forward to this time of the year every year. Just feels like it's kind of
pillowcases
like
of candy.
pounds of candy. Just feels like it's the beginning of 2 months of fun and celebration and
Right.
family and just
Yeah.
good times.
My
Love it.
favorite thing about this season is long pants. You know, and
And
some
puffy jackets.
some of our listeners might not understand how humid and hot it actually gets in North Carolina, but especially when you work in an unair conditioned shop and you start having days where you can just walk outside and it's like, where am I? Colorado? The humidity's like 30.
Feels good now.
Yeah.
You like wearing long pants?
Oh yeah. I would much rather wear long pants than it be like super hot and humid.
Gosh, I hate wearing
Sticky.
long pants.
It's not sticky. It's not sticky. You can wear long pants.
Bill's like shorts all year, all the time.
I'm 100%
Like
sure.
we get one of our snows every 3 years. Bill's wearing shorts.
Yeah.
I will stop the flip flops, but I'll still wear the shorts.
Love it. That was fun. Thanks for doing that with me, guys.
Oh, of course.
Fun doing the skit, utilizing everybody's voice acting talents,
Was fun.
and Jason's excellent
Yeah,
editing skills.
25 hours of editing to do now.
Thank you, my friend.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Hidden Gems. If you like what we're doing here, you can always check us out on social media. We're on Instagram and Twitter. Head over to our website, check out Hidden Gems Board Game Podcast /store. You can pick up merch there. We've got hats, we got t-shirts. And probably our best recommendation is go check us out over on Patreon. If you like our banter, our zany personalities over here, we do a backstage podcast where we just talk about other board game topics. We talk about life topics. We talk about other things we're
everything.
interested in, and kind of that informal format. So check that out. We don't have a Patreon episode coming out.
Yeah, no backstage today.
No backstage for this week because we kind of went long on this one.
Yeah,
but
in the skit.
There are at least, I think it's 17 or 18 other backstage episodes you can check out. You can get involved for as little as $2. There's other perks and stuff if you get into the higher tiers. So go check that out. That's patreon.com/Hidden Gems Podcast. And thanks for listening to this Halloween spectacular episode. Until next time. Wait, what do I say?
I'm your host, Cameron.
Oh, yeah. It's been a long time, guys.
It has. You're rusty.
And until next time, I'm your host, Cameron.
This is Chris.
Jason.
This is Bill.
Thanks for listening. Oh, man.
What's there?
This episode of Hidden Gems, number 56, was recorded in Raleigh, North Carolina on October 23, 2023. Next time on Hidden Gems, it's time for another Spiel des Jahres Losers episode, and we'll be looking at the year 2012. Will any of the games we review be better than 2012's winner, Kingdom Builder? Tune in 3 weeks to find out. Hidden Gems is produced and edited by Chris Alley, Cameron Lockey, and Jason Yanchuleff. Our Board Game Geek Guild is monitored and managed by honorary Hidden Gems team member Ghidorah. Our Discord channel is monitored and managed by honorary Hidden Gems team member Snoozefest. Our show's logo was illustrated by designer and artist Caitlin Nieto. Check out her work on Instagram at It's Caitlin Nieto. We would love to hear from you. Feel free to join the discussion on our many social media accounts. You can find us on Facebook at Hidden Gems Board Game Podcast, Instagram at hiddengems.podcast, and Twitter at Hidden Gems Board. Disagree with one of our reviews? Have something you want to say about one of the games we discussed today? You can also make your voice heard on our Board Game Geek Guild at boardgamegeek.com, guild number 3874. Once again, thank you for joining us on Hidden Gems, and until next time, fellow gem seekers, enjoy your games and enjoy your search.